Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
There's a clue to another treasure. How's your thirst for podcast, Captain? Unquenchable Tintin. Fuck.
Podcast
bad.
Captain?
Jesus Christ.
Let's keep going. That was good. Let's keep going. Welcome, everybody, to Blank Check. I'm David Sims.
I'm Griffin Newman.
He's so upset, guys. This is great.
That was our second take, and I still fucked it up.
What? Podcast Captain.
How's your thirst for podcast, Captain?
I thought you were going to say podcasting. You know, it might have tripped off the tongue a little easier.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not letting me legally do a third take, so
I think that was good. What do you think? What do you think, guest?
I think it was pretty good. I didn't. You sold it.
Yeah.
David's trying to initiate the thing where we have the guest talk before we
It's
introduce
my favorite
them.
thing.
So feel free to continue saying whatever you want. Unnamed guest for the next 5 minutes before we introduce you.
Not a problem. I got a whole bit prepared.
Amazing.
Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. There's no bits.
Oh, right.
Sorry.
This is a No Bits podcast.
This is, after all, Blank Check with Griffin and David.
That is correct. It is Blank Check with Griffin and David. We are hashtag the two friends.
True.
It's a podcast about directors, filmographies,
Bits.
people who have No! You tried to slip one by me.
I did. I'm sorry.
This is a No Bits podcast.
But it's about people who have massive success.
Early on in their career, and they're given a series of blank checks from Hollywood. Sometimes an unending series of blank checks.
Sometimes.
Sometimes those checks clear.
Yeah.
They're fine. They go and they deposit the checks. They try to cash them out. It
And
works.
that's fine. Yeah.
Everywhere. Everything's fine. But sometimes they bounce, baby.
There you go.
And we do miniseries on different directors, going through their filmographies, one film at a time. We are currently on the films of Steven Spielberg, the DreamWorks years.
Yeah, although at this point, isn't DreamWorks kind of in the tank? I guess not.
Yeah, I guess we should address. We've been doing this miniseries so out of order that we haven't really been talking about the chronology of DreamWorks. But this, yes, let's.
It's now. These are the first movies where DreamWorks is not even a logo anymore.
It starts dissolving in a major way. But let's just say this is
after you,
Podniffy Cast.
of course.
That's what's called. And the film we're talking about today is his 2011 masterpiece, The Adventures of Tintin, subtitled in certain markets, The Secret of the Unicorn.
Yes, but in America, just The Adventures of Tintin.
Right.
Yeah.
Because people were like, Secret Unicorn, what?
We're very anti-secrets
We're very anti-secrets.
as Americans.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a very open podcast.
Yeah.
For example, I just found out Ben has a cat.
A cat named Pig.
It's true. Miss Piggy.
Oh, that's the full name?
Wait a second. Which one is it?
Well, formally it's Pig, but she's a lady cat, so I call her Miss Piggy.
Wait,
sometimes.
formally it's Piggy?
It's like her formal name.
Oh.
Formally.
But
I
casually,
thought you said formerly.
but casually I call her Miss Piggy.
How are we doing, guys?
Good.
I just read a press release about Will and Grace coming back to NBC while you were doing that.
Is it happening or
Thank
not?
It's happening.
Oh, fuck.
10
How is it-
episodes.
10 episodes. That's all. How could they contain the greatness to 10?
I don't know, man.
It's a miniseries. It's a limited event series.
Yeah, it's like the Young Pope. but Will and Grace.
Great.
None of them have anything to do right now.
Hey,
Even Megan Mullally's kind of taking it easy.
how do you think people are going to feel about the Young Pope by the time we're recording this episode?
No one will be talking about it.
3
It'll
days
be
after the Young Pope
forgotten.
premiered. Right? 3 days
Yes.
after premiere?
Yes.
Yes.
3 or 4 days, yeah.
How many episodes is the Young Pope? And should
10, I
10?
believe.
Okay, so it'll be it just started. It'll be like mid-March. Done mid-March, early April.
Bow wrapped. Hey, you know who people won't be forgetting mid-March?
Who?
Producer Ben.
That's true.
A.K.A. the Ben Deucer. A.K.A. Producer Ben. A.K.A. the Poet Laureate. A.K.A. the Haas. A.K.A. Mr. Positive. A.K.A. Mr. Positive. A.K.A. the Fart Detective. A.K.A. the Meat Lover. A.K.A. close personal friend of Dan Lewis. He is the Peeper. He is not Professor Crispy. He is the Fuck Master. He's White Hot Benny. He's Dirtbike Benny.
Jesus Christ.
Soaking Wet Benny.
Yeah, and
I
he's
said
got the
Poet Laureate is a
titles.
finance film critic. He's graduated certain titles over the course of different miniseries, such as Kylo Ben, Producer Ben Kenobi, Ben Night Shyamalan, Say Benny Thang, and Ailey Benz with a $$ sign at the end of it.
You always hit Kenobi weird.
Kenobi.
You always
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Anyway, and almost all of those nicknames are enshrined on buttons that were just presented to us.
And those buttons came courtesy of our very special guest today.
Hey.
But we'll talk about those buttons in the merchandise spotlight.
Uh-huh.
Save it for the end of the episode. Keep people on the hook until the end.
Now you have something to look forward to at the very end.
Our guest.
Yes.
You know him. He's written for The Onion and Adult Swim.
True.
But if you're a hardcore Blanky,
Mm-hmm.
if you're covering the extended universe, got your eyes all over the place, you know him as an important figure in the Blanky mythology.
Yeah.
Because he has launched for months, perhaps even years now.
I think it's about a year, I think.
Slow rumbling campaign.
Which has then turned into the loudest, most aggressive campaign I've ever seen anyone have for anything.
His name on Twitter is blank check guest?
Question mark?
Which I'm changing to exclamation point after
Hey!
I
There
done
we
with this.
go.
The Great Joe Garden is here today.
Hey, everybody, thanks.
Thanks for being here, Joe.
Thanks for having me. I just would like to point out that the only reason I started my aggressive campaign was because early on you said, I think it was you, David, said, well, now we've had everybody from our trivia team on the
That
show.
is true. That is true.
However, I was an alternate on the team
Yes.
twice, and that set my blood to boiling. And,
Wow.
Sure.
And
So
then,
it was just that. You just went, have we had everyone? We've had everyone.
Ramona's been on the Avatar episode.
We haven't had
We haven't had comment on.
no. Doesn't he live in like Bulgaria now or something?
No, he lives in New
He's
York.
back.
We
he's
should
back.
maybe get him on. Yeah.
We haven't had like Molly or so, like our friends who
Sure.
are not in the entertainment or media industries.
Sure.
Um,
And including alternates, there may be a few. Bridie hasn't been on.
sure.
We'll have Bridie on someday, I'm sure. She lives in L.A.
Like Morgan Evans' girlfriend was on a team.
That's true. And also, they're no longer dating.
oh.
Who is yep in it?
Yeah.
Oh boy! Someone I was once dating very briefly was on the trivia team, but you weren't there. Oh no, but you were there another time. You know what? Let's stop talking about this.
Hey now!
Wow, the trivia team is just a
a
littered
lot.
with bad romance, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Man, there was a lot going on the trivia team.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh, hey, you know what? This could be really late by the time this episode comes out, but I'll say this now that we're on topic.
What? Boy, what is this?
I want to wish a congratulations to former guest and trivia team member Rachel Lang.
Mm-hmm. Oh, she got
who
married.
Just got married to Alex Pitts.
Yeah,
Oh.
In January.
that's right. And they were both with us at Taruk the first
They both
flight.
appeared in our Turek episode. Yeah.
And now they are wed.
Now they are wed.
It's unfortunate they couldn't get wed at Taruk the first flight. But,
It is unfortunate,
But
and it's unfortunate that our congratulations have to come 5 months late.
well, this is the thing. We're recording split like in a couple days, and like
Yeah.
we could do some of the timely stuff then.
Yes.
Because that actually posts next week.
Yeah.
Anyway, The Adventures of Tintin.
The Adventures of Tintin.
The Adventures of Tintin.
Do you like this movie, Joe?
I have a lot of thoughts about it, and I'm
Okay.
not sure if I'm just ready to talk about it because I'm not sure that I love it. I'm not.
Okay.
I don't dislike it. It just seems like it's a weird movie to me.
It is a weird movie.
It is certainly a weird movie.
It's a movie. I watched this with Joanna. It's a movie that she said doesn't know its audience, which I think is fair. It's an odd movie, but then so I'm a Tintin obsessive. I don't
Okay.
know if you guys are.
Big fan.
Absolutely.
I grew up with those books.
Same here.
Like my dad gave them to me, and like so. And I was thinking about it. Like I read them obsessively from a very young age, and yeah, no, I mean like people died in them. It's probably the first things I ever read where people died. People are waving guns at each other, and like.
Tintin shoots, and he's only 14.
Yeah, all kinds of dark themes. And then you're watching the movie and you're like, well, no, I mean, this is very faithful to the books.
Right.
But maybe understand that a child in 2011 is not going to want to watch the adventures of a cub reporter who, busts like drug runners and
Lives alone in an apartment with his dog.
yeah, and like befriends a middle-aged alcoholic and
Tintin's weird. Like,
helps him inherit not a stately home, but a nice
It's a
place.
stately home. It's a manor.
Sure,
Yeah.
it's a manor.
I mean,
it's not a mansion.
Tintin is weird tonally, and it also gets in that territory of like, wait, why are Doc Brown and Marty McFly friends?
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
true.
like it
That's
gets into
true.
that territory, which I think more often happens with cartoons and like children's books, where like whoever's writing them will just be like, what are some interesting characters? You put them together, and you don't feel the need to explain why they're friends with each other.
Well, right, and especially, I mean, we know in the books Tintin, it's like initially it's just like Tintin. He's a boy reporter. He goes on adventures to like other countries.
His beloved dog Snowy,
He has a beloved dog who
AKA
helps out.
Milu,
Milou.
aka
I mean, what?
Milu Ben, aka
No, shut up. And then, like after about 6 or 7 books, Hergé writes this Haddock character,
Yeah.
and he's like, this guy is kind of like the extroverted id, you know, like this is good. He's a
Yes.
nice balance to Tintin.
Takes it
I'll
to the
just
next
keep
level.
him around. And
Right.
yeah, like, why would they be friends? I don't know.
And it's sort of the crew development. I mean, you have Professor Calculus, who's not in the movie.
No.
And you have the Thompson and Thompson.
Yes.
Right. Who
Yes.
are, but they're not used as well as they could be.
No, I mean, this...
The movie is trying, I think, to hit a lot of the touchstones.
Yes.
Without, without like, weaving them all in seamlessly. You know, it's
Yeah.
some of the stuff is just like, well, we gotta,
Yes.
They were wise not to use calculus.
This
in
is
my
Right.
opinion.
100%.
You
And
know,
this
that's
is,
someone you
yes.
bring in later.
Yes, this is 100% like a Tintin and Haddock movie. That's what this is.
It's like a Tintin Haddock basically origin story.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly. I think it's a good movie. I think it's a
Yeah.
great movie. I don't know if I'd say it's a masterpiece, but I think it's a very good movie, and I think it is a very nice starter to a franchise that does not exist. You know, I'd love to see the next two movies.
And one could argue a corrective to a franchise that
Like,
already exists.
You mean Indiana Jones?
Perhaps we'll talk about that in a little bit. But
Fair enough.
let's do a little housekeeping on DreamWorks, because you raised a good point here, which is that we haven't been talking about this because we've been recording out of order. DreamWorks founded as a full deal.
It's a proper studio.
It's a studio. They have
It's
their
a
own
major.
distribution arm. They have their own fucking like lot. You know, like all that fucking shit. And over time, DreamWorks becomes kind of unwieldy, right?
Yes.
The most profitable division is their animation department.
Yes.
Which after like Shrek like blows through the roof and then they have like a run of big hits, they spin DreamWorks Animation off into becoming its own studio.
They do.
It is its own entity, its own like individually traded stock, you know?
DreamWorks' last movie is Just Like Heaven in 2005.
That is the
everyone
last-
remembers Just
yes.
Like Heaven. Joe's making it.
Vaguely, I don't
Reese
remember.
Witherspoon's in a coma.
Yes, because this was
She's not actually dead.
not to talk
this
about
was a film
this.
trivia.
This was
thing,
a film trivia trick question.
where they were like, "Is she a ghost or not?" And we were like, "Yeah, she's a ghost." And they were like, "Well, no, she's not
in a
dead.
coma. She's in a
Ah.
coma, but then she becomes a ghost and she starts dating Mark Ruffalo.
She's in a coma, but she's haunting her old apartment, and
Which
Mark
Mark Ruffalo
Ruffalo has
moved
moved
into.
They fall in love, and then he realizes she's in a coma and wakes her up.
So it's sort of like Beetlejuice if Beetlejuice was just in a coma and
If Beetlejuice just wanted to like date Alec Baldwin,
Right.
at the end of the movie, and Gina Davis wasn't in it. I
Yeah.
mean, or you could whatever.
or if it was Alec Baldwin wanted to date Jeffrey Jones.
Sure. Yeah. No. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right,
no.
that's what
Beetlejuice wouldn't even be involved.
No,
in
Beetlejuice
fact.
wouldn't be
He
part
would.
of
They
it.
would. No one would call him.
A thing I remember very
You just saw the Bye Bye Man. Speaking of, we were just talking about the Bye Bye Man. Speaking of movies where you have to
Oh,
say
I
the
did.
name of something.
How-
I did just see the Bye Bye Man.
how was it?
It was not great.
Okay.
It was
Not
I mean,
great.
acceptable. I go to see most horror movies when they're in the theater because I love the genre, and it's
You want
like
to support it.
yeah, I'll support it. And I mean, right now in 30 days, you have a new Underworld movie and a new Resident Evil movie,
I know.
and everybody's crapping on the Bye Bye Man. I mean, those two
I got no beef.
franchises.
Well, no, I think the Resident Evil franchise is interesting. I have never seen anything from the Underworld franchise.
I've only seen the first film of each.
But I was
Also,
talking.
I'm eating a bagel.
I was talking to former guest, previous and future guest, Richard Lawson, about
Mm-hmm.
this last night. Like, they did Underworld and Resident Evil movies when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember when those started. They're still doing those?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, is really how I feel about it. Like, really, Underworld? That was, like, semi-cool in high school. Like, it was never that big a deal.
There are 6 of each now,
I
or
think
5 of each?
there's 5 Underworlds and, I believe, 6 Resident Evils.
That's
And
pretty
one of the
crazy.
Underworlds does not have Kate Beckinsale in it, and it's called
Right.
Rise of the Lycans.
Is a prequel
and
starring
like,
Bill Nye.
stars Bill Nye, who's in all of them, as like explaining like how the vampires came to fight the werewolves or something. I don't know. Like they released that in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
They spent more than $1 on it.
And it grossed more than the latest Underworld.
Yeah, well,
Just Like Heaven, just before we ended the DreamWorks thing,
right, and then it goes under the Paramount.
Right,
it
that's the
becomes
thing.
part of Paramount.
they signed a deal with Paramount, and they sort of have first look at Paramount. And DreamWorks is their own, like, essentially a super-sized, like, production company.
Right.
Within a studio.
Mhm.
But Paramount is the one who, DreamWorks isn't doing home video anymore. Paramount's the one using their distribution arm and their marketing team and all of that.
That ends with the masterpiece film, She's Out of My League, starring Jay Baruchel.
And what's that? That's
2010.
2010. Okay.
And then DreamWorks teams up with Reliance,
Uh-huh.
and then it's like DreamWorks can just sort of, it's just it's like a production company, and they, they'll do some Disney movies, they'll do some Paramount movies.
Well, it's mostly Disney, though. That's the
Mostly
main
Disney.
thing. Reliance is the one bankrolling them. Disney is the one who's sort of housing them as a full-force
But,
studio.
like they did Cowboys and Aliens, that was Universal. Like they did Dinner for Schmucks, that was Paramount. Like they'll fuck around with other, they're just kind of nothing. They're just
I think the
a
Paramount
brand.
movies they go back to are largely cases of
Fair
things
enough.
that were set up.
Fair enough.
Back in
I'm
the
sure
Paramount
there's
days.
right.
But then there's even shit like it's like, okay, so DreamWorks, oh my god, they have Shrek, but then they spin animation off into its
Sure.
own thing, and then DreamWorks Animation ends up going from Paramount to Fox to now to Universal.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a little bit inside baseball, but who's making the decisions? I mean, how do they go from Shrek and all the other, like, the Spielberg powerhouses into this, into Just Like Heaven, and what was the other one, the Jay Baruchel movie?
Hey, she's out of her league.
She's out of
my
her
league.
She's out of my league.
The problem was it's very hard to establish a new studio that doesn't have a back catalog. Because like a thing that's able to keep Warner Brothers afloat is that they have the entirety of the Warner Brothers library.
Yeah, people are still buying Casablanca or whatever.
Right, and also just sort of the licensing to TV and all those sorts of things, And DreamWorks like started in 1997, and it's like not a very deep library. And
No.
if they make a couple movies that are big and don't do well, like I remember like 2003, the big deal was like their highest grossing film was Old School, which made $85 million, which was like respectable. But if you're a studio,
there's a lot of bad movies in
and
there.
that's the number
Well,
one
yeah,
film you
Seabiscuit.
release. Seabiscuit was 2003, but that was a co-production, right?
I don't know.
I think that was Universal and DreamWorks, and Universal got more of it.
All right. Okay.
I know Sinbad, they did like the hand-drawn animated Sinbad, which cost like $100 million and made like 20.
Oh.
And
Was it
like,
good?
it's not terrible. I'd say it's not
great. I
good.
don't know why they made that.
Yeah.
That was at the tail end. That's like the Treasure Planet year where you're
Yes.
like, it's finally like the nails in the coffin for old school kind of Disney style animated films.
It's weird that the last 4 years of like the death rattle of hand-drawn animated films was all studios trying to make big boys adventure
Yeah,
movies.
making very old fashioned like adventure movies.
Because it was like Atlantis,
Atlantis, Lost Empire,
Treasure Planet.
Planet.
Rotel Dorado.
Isn't that in the 90s?
Uh,
That
no,
movie is
that's-
fucking crazy.
That's a weird fucking movie. I think that movie's 2000
That
on
movie
the Nugget.
is 2000. Yeah, you're right. That movie is a homosexual romance adventure
Correct, yeah.
about two white men who like ruin a nice civilization. for no good reason. But I mean, that's
Right,
like,
Elton John
that is
sings
like,
that in the movie. He goes, El Dorado.
I think he does. I mean, I'm
It's
not
a
being like
city of
cute.
gold.
Like
No,
they,
no.
Like, they like there's a lot of like bathing together, and it's like
No, it's movies about two nice men who are in love with each
they're-
other. We're not being
yeah,
flip
but
about it.
Right. I mean, they're not like unaware of it.
No,
Like the
no.
two men, like
Yeah.
they are.
No, they're aware. They're in love with each other.
Right,
They
yeah,
every
right.
night before they go to sleep, they kiss each other and they go, "I love you so much."
It's just I don't know. These things, they're odd.
Yes,
You're right. Boys' adventures. Very, very 30s. And here's
and they
another
were really
boys'
expensive.
adventure.
They were all really expensive. And they all
Tintin.
lost one.
Tintin's
Tintin
a
is a
boys'
boys' adventure, and it's animated, but motion capture
Yeah, it is
in a weird way. The final point I was going to make about DreamWorks is like the same way they lost DreamWorks Animation. Their big thing over the last 10 years was Transformers. But Transformers was set up in their Paramount days, and Paramount got Transformers in the divorce. Like, Spielberg's still a producer on Transformers, but they're not DreamWorks movies anymore, I think, in anything other than title. So it was like, too many things that were, costly failures.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a back catalog to rely on.
Yeah, so the wheels come off the bus.
And I think you have the three major people in charge, right? Geffen, very shortly after founding DreamWorks, kind of stopped being a guy with his hands.
And the music
in the
industry, is
Right.
falling apart in general.
And he just became sort of like an old philanthropist guy rather than a dude who wanted to get his hands dirty and be in the midst of things. Spielberg, I think, got restless running a studio and just wanted to be making movies, right?
He starts making not very big, hit movies.
Which is-
he doesn't
yes.
really want to make these things.
Which is kind of an overarching thing about this miniseries that's sort of interesting is Spielberg's this nonstop hit machine with a couple weird outliers. It's big fucking 4-quadrant hits. And then they were like, what if Spielberg started his own studio? And everyone was like, whoa, every movie's a Spielberg movie? And then he's like, what if I make solemn meditations on the gray areas of human morality? That's what all these movies are about. Human morality. I can't
Human
fucking talk
morality.
anymore.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he makes Tintin. Let's get on to Tintin.
Yes.
Let's get on to Tintin, where we've talked too much.
Oh, and then Katzenberg was the third leg, and he went off and started his own thing. So that's
he's
what
doing,
sort
he's
of
doing
happened.
fine. He's still a cutthroat businessman who just wants to make Madagascars for all.
Yeah. So the story is Steven Spielberg is doing press overseas for Raiders of the Lost Ark.
You mean for Crystal Skull? Oh,
No,
you're
Raiders of the Lost
going
Ark.
all the way back.
I'm not going to track it day by day,
Okay.
but
Well, maybe
he's doing the press tour.
and he gets a Tintin.
Someone says to him, like, so it seems like your film is very influenced by
You're making a Tintin movie. here.
Hergé.
Right.
And he goes, who the fuck is Hergé? I don't know from Hergé.
Sure.
And they go, Tintin, motherfucker. He goes, what are you talking about, Tintin? You stutter?
I don't think he talked like that. He was very polite.
That's what he talked like.
No, I don't think
At that period of time, yeah, look it up. For a very short period of time, he was like, I don't fuck with Hergé.
Spielberg's rude phase.
He had the world by the balls at that point.
He
Why
did.
wouldn't he talk like?
Yeah,
like
he had the balls in a vice. And he picked up a book
Uh-huh.
and was like, oh, this shit's good.
Yeah, well, he's right. Tintin's the best.
Tintin fucking rules.
Tintin fucking rules.
He's a little boy who's a reporter.
He's like 15.
He's got a thirst for adventure and a nose for a good story. He knows
Right.
when he sniffs out a good story.
Yeah.
He has bottomless pockets too, which is really kind of an anachronism at this point. There's
Bottomless pockets?
Well, there's no end to the money he can
Agreed,
spend
but-
to pursue a story.
But very short pants.
+4s. He wears +4s.
You think about how long those pockets must be in relation to his pants, which come up just around the knee.
Yes. And not only that, they're very baggy.
Yes.
You know, the +4 is a
Yeah.
baggy pant.
Also, no hesitation when it comes to punching an adult right in his nose.
Okay, so this is the
Give a
thing
shit.
I love about Tintin, because we talked about,
He's also like, his hairline is receding, considering, which is strange considering he's 15 years old.
and he's got the flip.
Yeah, he's got a little
It's
tuft.
called a quiff.
Yes, he's
The
got a
Tintin quiff, though.
Yes.
We talked about in our Crystal Skull episode, and inevitably we're going to have to cross-reference Crystal Skull a lot in this episode, how we think,
Which is the previous film
yes,
that Stevie Spielberger had made.
Correct.
I got his name wrong.
how the thing that I believe appeals to Harrison Ford about Indiana Jones so much is that Indiana Jones is cerebral,
Uh-huh.
and he's kind of a dork in the body of an action hero.
Sure.
Whereas Tintin's really just kind of a dork.
Yeah.
Like, he's good at fighting. He's surprisingly good at, like, firing guns and, like, riding planes, but there's nothing hip
he
about
can
Tintin.
shoot a plane out of the sky with a pistol.
Right.
With one shot.
With one bullet.
Well, this is the thing I kind of love about Tintin.
Yeah.
Nothing about Tintin is badass other than the fact that he does badass things.
I totally agree. Tintin himself, especially in the earlier when Hergé started writing
Yeah.
it, he's a blank thing. You're supposed to just project yourself onto Tintin.
And you talking about the fact that, like, it's like, who's this movie for? That's the thing that's kind of great about Tintin is, like, Tintin looks like he should just be, like, doing, like, an educational book series about,
Sure,
like,
yes.
learning, like, human morality. But instead, Tintin's about, like, fucking punching pirates.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like the only reason the plot gets going in Tintin is Tintin's like, something's up with this weird little this old sailor boat.
He's
Like
got a
something's up
nose
with this
for a
model
good
ship.
story.
Yeah, this is a good story.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to get on the Caraboudjan and fight a bunch of pirates.
That's the Indiana Jones thing, and I
Yeah.
think that's the comparison, is that Indiana Jones just wants shit for his museum.
Indiana Jones just wants to have a nice thing for his museum and then he can give a lecture on it.
He's not trying to make money. He just wants to get it, put it in a crate, give it back to Marcus Brody, lock it up.
Tintin is a, quote, reporter, end quote. I mean,
Right.
you never see him write a story. You never see him, like, talk to an editor. You never hear what he works for, you know.
Right.
But he is famous reporter, boy
Very famous.
reporter,
Yeah.
Tintin.
A boy reporter without parents or
With
an
a
editor.
parent, with a name that is not French or Belgian or anything. It's
No.
just a name that
Yeah.
Hergé just thought sounded nice. Like
Tintin.
Tintin. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has no last name or first name. He's like a being.
Well, I think his first name's Tin and his last name's Tin.
They do call him Mr. Tintin sometimes, but I don't know.
His middle name's Ricardo.
I think the thing. Well, here's
Tin Ricardo Tin?
there's a larger point with this that it strikes me is that when you're reading the comics, you can project yourself really well because he's got the round face.
Yes.
he's very blank. But when you watch the movie and he's more not real, he's more realistic. I was going to say
Sure.
more realistic, but because of the motion capture animation, you can't project yourself as well. So a lot of you're
That's
no longer
true.
participating in the stories.
Yeah.
You're just kind of witnessing, and it doesn't have quite the same.
That's a fair criticism.
And Tintin-
the animation
yes.
is maybe where some people can't get on board with the Adventures of Tintin the
Right.
movie.
I'll make my argument for it.
That's
but,
fine. I like the
yeah.
animation.
But Tintin is kind of a cipher as a character, you know? I mean, you don't know much about who he is, and his personality is really just that he, like, springs headfirst into adventure.
Yes.
but he doesn't seem very tough other than the fact that he just never seems shaken by anything. It's weirder watching it in a movie because reading it in a book when his face is so blank, when you're not hearing the voice.
Lean clear, or whatever it's called.
Yes.
His very, very expressive blank style of
as opposed to
artistry.
Haddock, Calculus, Thompson, who are much bigger, kind of caricature-y, personality-driven, tick-driven characters. And certainly like the villains and the supporting characters and all of that.
Sure.
But there are a lot of those similarities between Jones and Tintin. And Spielberg picks up the Tintin book, is like, this shit's fucking good,
Mm-hmm.
calls up Hergé. Hergé is like, Spielberg? Huh. Spielberg could make a good Tintin movie.
Right, because they had made cartoons in the past.
And there were
Hergé
two
thought
live
they were
action
a bunch
films.
of pieces of shit. Yeah, I didn't like the live action movies.
No,
Didn't
the
like
live
any
action
of it.
movies are bad, and they're original stories. They're not adaptations. They're original stories with the cast that were done in France in the 70s. He didn't like them. He didn't like the animated adaptations. He gets really into the idea of Spielberg doing Tintin. He keeps on saying Spielberg's the only person, the imagination, the delicate touch, all of this. And he sells the rights to Spielberg.
No, you know the story, right?
What?
He dies.
Oh, correct.
Like, and then
Spielberg is going to
meets
Belgium
with his
to meet
widow
him.
instead, and his widow's like, "Yeah, sure, have the rights." You know,
Spielberg
like,
was getting on a plane to go meet Hergé in Belgium, and he died the day before. And then when he gets there, the widow's like, he would have
I'm
wanted
reading
to
about
have
it now. He wanted Jack Nicholson to play Captain Haddock.
Yep.
That is terrible.
Yep.
Boy,
And who would have played? Probably Anthony Michael Hall would have played Tintin, right?
God,
Right? That would have been the guy at the time.
sure, why not?
In like
Yeah.
85.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
Emilio Estevez as Tintin.
Melissa Matheson writes a draft.
Yeah.
I mean, it like kind of gets close to going. He almost makes it before Last Crusade. He doesn't. The rights lapse.
Yes, Polanski wants to make it.
Claude Berry wants to make
Claude
it.
Berry wants to make
But
it.
the widow's like, he really wanted Spielberg. You know?
And then
Spielberg kind of loops back around.
he eventually in the 2000s starts sniffing around it again.
And now he's like, maybe
He
animated.
proposes this trilogy, which is maybe I'll do The Secret of the Unicorn, Red Reckham's Treasure is one movie, you know,
'Cause
doing these two-part
the book series are, the books are kind of diptychs. I mean,
Yeah, often. There's some that are standalones, but the most famous ones are kind of two-parters.
Yeah.
Then he would do The Seven Crystal Balls, Prisoners of the Sun,
Yeah.
The Incan Adventure, and then he, maybe like Tintin in Tibet, something like that.
And he's going like, do I do straight animation? Do I do live action with some CGI? He likes the work of Weta Digital, so he reaches out to them to say, hey, think about doing Tintin, want to do a test to see how a CGI Snowy would look.
Right.
And Peter Jackson, who had founded Weta, intercepts that transmission and goes like, fucking Spielberg thinks he's making a Tintin movie? I fucking love Tintin.
Yeah, let's make a Tintin movie.
Well, you know what Jackson does, and it's very charming.
Go ahead.
Without telling Spielberg, they make their test of the CGI Snowy,
Right.
and Jackson dresses up as Captain Haddock
Right.
and films himself as the live-action element on video saying, like, yo, Spielberg, I'm Peter Jackson. Let me in on that Tintin.
It was charming. It was really.
It was really charming.
It's funny
Peter
because
Jackson is charming.
And he looked like Haddock.
he really did.
Yeah.
Right.
The outfit's really good, and they were filming him in a CGI background to be like, here's a photorealistic background, here's a photorealistic Snowy, here's a real Haddock. And Spielberg's like, interesting, picks up the phone, calls him.
He really does look like Haddock.
Looks a lot like Haddock, especially when he was in
I mean,
his like midweight
Haddock-
level.
I once was Captain Haddock for Halloween. He's not.
Oh, cool.
He's not hard to do
No.
as a costume because he, like all Tintin characters, it's a lot of big, obvious elements.
Yeah.
He's got a big sweater. It's
Yeah.
blue and it has an anchor on it.
No.
He wears a blazer and a sailor's hat and a beard, and like that's about it.
Ben, you've been getting into fashion recently. How would you rate the style of the Tintin universe?
I loved it. It was throwbacky. It was really fun. I mean, Tintin himself, it's pretty rough. I don't know.
You mean his style? The
I'm not
powder
into
blue,
the capris.
the pants, and then he's got the little collar popped.
But no, like all the guys on the ships were looking real sharp. Nice jackets, cool hats. The policemen and the like city dwellers. Yeah, I was really immersed, definitely in the fashion.
So I think Jackson's the one who makes this big push to Spielberg.
Right.
He goes like, what if we go in on this together?
Right.
And they come up
what
with
if
this plan.
What if we do like
You talking about Pete Jackson?
Peter Jackson.
Oh, okay.
PJ says like, you direct the first one, I produce. Then we switch. True West on Broadway style.
Right.
I direct, you produce.
Right.
The third one, that's a freebie. We'll figure that one out later.
Yeah. Maybe we do it together. Even was sort of floated. Yeah.
And then Jackson goes like, but what about motion capture? Kind of sells him on this motion capture thing. And Spielberg gets really into this idea of like, I could never figure out whether to do live action or animated. It's a property that exists somewhere kind of in between.
Right.
There's a certain heightened quality that, like, if you do a live action Tintin, the French ones look really weird. And they try to use makeup to, like, approximate
No, it looks
the features.
bizarre.
It looks bizarre. And
I've seen staged Tintin, like
Uh-huh.
the plays, and those are good, but that's different because you're in a theater. You can suspend your disbelief.
But you go into a territory where you're like, do you choose to make it Dick Tracy-esque, where you go so over the top and so heightened that it becomes the style? Or do you set it in reality, in which case you have to tone down a lot of the elements of the books in order to make it look more everyday?
Right.
And
So
he
here
has
you go.
this
Here's the
idea-
happy medium.
Oh, I don't want to do an animated film. I like working with actors. In, whatchamacallit, mocap, there's the thing they call, like, in the space or whatever it is, the volume,
Uh-huh.
where you're recording with people, you can actually fucking operate the camera. So Spielberg's
cool.
like, even though I don't have the set, I have the camera here, I can figure out my shots, I can move it around, I can do these complicated moves. Sells him on that, films
They do it.
and Jackson, I think, does a lot of the post-production kind of stuff, since he has the experience in that. But Spielberg's the one who shoots it, works with the actors. It comes out in 2011. It is...
Yeah, also, Stephen Moffat writes a draft.
Yes.
Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish finish the draft because of the
Right.
writer's strike. Like, it all gets fucked up, and Moffat
By the
goes
time
off
the
to
writer's
Doctor
strike
Who.
ends, yeah, right.
But so they, three great British writers
Uh-huh.
work on this adaptation of not a British work, but it's certainly a work that's incredibly popular in Britain.
Yeah.
Much more so than in America.
That's
in
a big
America,
thing.
it's more of a niche property. I
Right,
would
and
say, right?
Tintin's at the cusp of, like, overseas box office grosses are carrying more weight.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big thing of, like, Sony dropped out of the movie very shortly before it was to be put into production because Spielberg asked for his customary 30% of the gross. And they were like, this is a gambit. Tintin's not big in America. It's an overseas play, this and that. And then I think Paramount stepped up to the plate then late. Or maybe it was Universal dropped out and Sony replaced it. Whatever the fuck it is. But there was a lot of hesitation to get the movie made, and it was like, okay, it's going to work in Europe. And it comes out in one of the weirdest moves of all time, comes out the same fucking week as War Horse. Spielberg decides to release
movies the same,
two movies within 3 days of each other.
and both wide releases, both like 3,000 screens,
And
in
both
America.
very similar kind of like wide appeal
Apple
family
dumpling
movies.
gang movies.
Right, they're
Yeah.
like very earnest,
Yeah.
like, like old-fashioned kind of dorky family movies.
I mean, Tintin makes Warhorse look like Care Bears. I mean, like,
Right.
yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Care, yeah.
But he releases one on Wednesday and one on Friday, and the movies kind of cannibalize each other. They both end up around 80.
Yeah.
You have to think that if he had released one Spielberg movie at Christmas time, one of them would have
Release
done.
Tintin in the summer. It
Right?
makes no sense to release it at Christmas.
But it feels
Warhorse
like-
is your Christmas movie.
It feels like putting a Spielberg movie like that in the Christmas weekend could do $150 million.
Maybe, yeah, sure. Of course.
If you
It
had
did Catch Me If
one-
You Can or whatever.
Right,
yeah.
but it felt like they kind of cannibalized each other. And this movie doesn't have much of a lasting legacy. It was shut out of Best Animated Film at the Oscars because they have a real
Yeah, they're
anti-mocap
anti-mocap.
prejudice.
Yeah, it should have been nominated.
Yes. And I feel like this movie is kind of a forgotten curio. And
It is. It made almost $400 million
Yeah.
worldwide. It did do very well overseas, but yeah.
they keep on talking about
It's
the
kind of-
sequel, and it
yeah.
just doesn't happen.
It's in that Pacific Rim territory where it's like it has some fans and it did well enough overseas that they'll
Yeah.
always be like, no, maybe we'll make another one.
Except they're actually doing Pacific Rim, and it's now been 6 years since Tintin.
I'm really excited to hear that. I love Pacific Rim.
You want to see Pacific Rim 2?
Hell yeah.
Well, because they're big.
That is true.
They are big robots.
Like they nominated Puss in Boots
Bad movie.
Oh.
instead of Tintin.
I said bad movie. I haven't seen it. I don't know.
A Cat in Paris, which is okay.
Okay.
Chico and Rita, which is sexy.
Yeah, that's a real sexy movie.
Kung Fu Panda 2, which is
Animated.
it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous movie. It's not good.
No.
But it is gorgeous. I will say.
Yeah, it looks really
it's
nice. Yeah.
animation wise, it's kind of
Yeah.
a triumph. And then Rango wins that year, which is mocap.
Oh.
Yeah, well,
Somewhat,
Rango's weird because they didn't technically do mocap. They used reference.
I know. Rango's really good though. I got
Rango
no beef with
fucking
Rango.
rules.
Rango's great.
But Tintin should have been nominated as well.
Agreed.
Yeah. Didn't it win a Golden Globe, though?
It won the Golden Globe, and at least was nominated for the BAFTA for animated film, but no Oscar.
Got the Best Score nomination, which Johnny Williams almost always gets nominated any year he has a movie, whether or not the work's good. But this is a good score.
It's a decent score.
It is.
I got no beef with the score. It's not my favorite Johnny Williams score, but I think it fits the movie very nicely.
I think it's really good. I mean, it's like, it's certainly not as good as like his Indiana Jones theme. But I remember having the feeling when I sat there in the theater and the opening credits started and they were playing the song, I was like, this feels like the musical theme to Tintin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this feels like the musical embodiment of Tintin.
They nominated her for Tintin and Warhorse that year, which was overkill.
Yeah, that's fucking stupid.
Right,
but let's get into the movie proper. This movie opens with this fucking awesome opening credit sequence and like a jazzy version of John Williams' theme.
Mm-hmm. And they're running through all the sort of the Tintin iconography.
Right. It's a little like the Catch Me If You Can opening.
Sure.
But more modernized. It's the same kind of like, it looks like a Saul Bass on steroids thing where it's like these abstract images that keep on morphing into different elements and it's all done in sort of silhouette.
It all has references like all the cities Tintin has been to in his adventures and other people that have popped up in books and so on.
And it uses some of the still images from the books, which I like, some of the panels. So it's like a nice little primer course of like, this is basically who this guy is. Backstory is important, but just know that Tintin's getting into adventures all the time.
Sure.
And here's a sense of like the legacy and the weight of who Tintin is, right? Mm-hmm. And then we transition from that into...
He's getting his caricature done.
Very clever, Stevie. There's a man who looks a
like
little
Hergé.
like Hergé, and he's doing a caricature of a young boy. What does that drawing look
take it
like?
down a notch.
It looks like Tintin from the comics.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about that open scene with the Hergé character. That they wanted to make him look like Hergé, so they did a lot more of a realistic depiction of him. And so then when they switch over to the more like stylized depictions, it's really kind of jarring because I was expecting more of that, uncanny valley.
You wanted not wanted, but you expected it to be right. Like I'm trying to think of, I guess, kind of what Zemeckis was doing at the time, right?
The Polar Express,
Beowulf and stuff like that.
Yeah.
More like not a cartoonish, more of a like, let's see if we like Final Fantasy. Let's see if we can try to get this to look like a person.
Right. And
but that's not what Tintin's going for.
There's a weird balance going on where it's like something like Beowulf, it's like, okay, he certainly uses the technology to make actors look different. Like he
makes Ray Winstone look like Sean Bean.
Right.
Which is weird.
And he
couldn't just cast Sean Bean, buddy. Like I mean, anyway.
He makes like Hopkins and Malkovich look older. Like it's like he puts digital old age makeup on them.
Sure, right.
But also wants
he
to make them
embellishes,
look
but he
like
wants
realistic versions of those guys wearing makeup.
In this, they look like cartoon Tintin. They look like Hergé's Tintin. Like like their noses are bulbous. If Hergé drew the nose,
they have little
bulbous.
eyes.
They have little eyes. It's like a mimicking of the cartoon, but it's also a real face.
It's a very bizarre
odd.
approach. Well, because as you said...
Has anyone done anything like this since? I'm trying to think.
No, because the only thing I can think of that's similar to this is Monster House was also mocap and is stylized, but they don't try to make them look realistic.
No, that's
at
a
all.
cartoon, right?
Right,
That
there's
looks
no
like a
detail in that. Like, they just look rounded and smooth, you know? This is like... They tried to figure out what the actual anatomy would be of people who had those faces.
Right. It's like when you see those weird things on BuzzFeed or whatever, where it's like, what would the Simpsons look like if it was real? Or, like Mario, what would he look like as a real person?
And the joke is that it's always like kind of upsetting and creepy.
Right.
I like how
because they have a big nose.
Right.
Or
No one's nose should be that
exaggerated
big or that round
feature.
or not have nostrils or whatever. I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, okay, so Hergé looks more similar, and Tintin they make look more realistic. But then a lot of supporting casts like, Haddock and the bad guys and everything, you get into these things where it's like nose shapes and face shapes and all that sort of stuff that you couldn't get in real life. What I like about it is I think it's the one mocap movie that doesn't creep me out watching it. I know a lot of people think Tintin looks creepy.
I think he looks okay. Do you think he looks
I
creepy?
mean, the film in general, but certainly that character as well.
Oh, sure.
The first time, like for it, about 20 minutes in, it took me, it took me about 20 minutes to get used to it. I think it was creeping me out at first, and then I eased into it.
I think that's fair. You definitely need to get used to it, especially if you like the books. You're like, oh, You know, like this, I didn't realize. Like, that's how I felt the first time I saw it. Like, I didn't get that it was going to look like this.
It's also weird because, as you said, like, Hergé's style was known as ligne claire, like clear line. It's
Yes,
like, this
ligne
guy's
claire,
simple, clear lines. And then they were like, what if we took those clear lines and gave them pores and, like, vasculomuscular systems?
Right.
And, like,
That's the thing they've done.
Yeah.
There's some quote.
And sped it up to about 17,000 frames per second.
right. It's
We're
like a
making-
very fast movie.
Yeah.
We're making them look photorealistic. The fibers of their clothing, the pores of their skin, each individual hair. They look exactly like real people, but real Hergé people. That's what Peter Jackson says about, like, the look they wanted. It's
Which
an
is-
odd look to aim for.
It's insane. Like, it's an insane gambit, and it's nonsensical. What I like about it, and I'm not going to give him credit and say that this was, like, an intentional meta-textual thing, but this is how it ends up working for me,
Yeah.
is I feel like this film totally owns the fact that it exists in the Uncanny Valley. Like, they're like, we're trying to encapsulate Uncanny Valley that is the world that the comic books exist in. Where it's like, on one hand, the Tintin books are, like, very banal. They take place on, like, very basic-looking, like, European streets.
Right.
With people playing...
It's set in quote-unquote Belgium. but,
wearing
you
like
don't-
normal clothes,
Yeah, yeah.
and then like crazy things happen, and you have like ghosts and spirits and like spaceships and shit like that. And I think this movie is like, we talked about in our Crystal Skull episode how there's the thing where it's like Spielberg's really good at compositing CGI elements into live action films and really bad at compositing live action elements into predominantly CGI environments.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, this movie was going to get caught in that if he tried to make it live action.
He didn't.
didn't.
Yeah.
And if he tried to make it cartoony, I think it'd feel too weightless.
Let's talk about the plot of Tintin. I feel like we're getting bogged down in a discussion we've already
He's
had.
living in the middle.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Tintin.
Tintin. Okay, so Tintin's walking around the open market. Everyone knows him. He's Tintin. They love his bylines. He's a good fucking reporter, and he's a little boy. Right?
He's a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he sees a beautiful wooden ship, a model ship.
He's excited. 50 guns.
Yeah.
Man of war. I don't know. He says a bunch of stuff like that.
Oh, but here's the thing that's already happened at this point. Spielberg sets up some fucking gestures. We see this dude with spats on his shoes, rocking back and forth on his heels. We see his hands, his fingers flexing. Ooh, Spielberg, making us pay attention to something. What's that? Where's that going? Right?
Sure.
So simultaneous things going on. One is, here's this pickpocket. Now we know how to recognize him. We know what he does with his hands. We know what he does with his feet. And here's Tintin. He's just shopping around. Right?
Uh-huh.
And it almost just feels like a Spielberg affectation. Little details. Oh, what are little side stories going on here? Tintin sees the ship. He loves it. He asks the guy how much it costs. Buys it. Immediately, the sweaty guy comes up to him, who's the first guy we see in the movie who's got, like, crazy Hergé face.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, how much do you want? Let me buy it from you. Kid, I'm trying to help you.
Right.
And Tintin's like, I'm a kid. I bought a boat. Leave me be. And then fucking Daniel Craig comes in with a pointy beard. And he is Sakharine.
Sakharine, played by Daniel Craig. Not a major character in the book that they're adapting at all.
A minor character.
Very minor. He's the same character at the start, which is like, oh, let me have this ship.
Yeah.
And Tintin's like, no thanks. And he's like, damn it. And like, that's kind of the last year. I mean, he's
Right.
just an antique collector. That's it.
Right.
Yeah, he looks like a bad guy, but that's about
He does, because he has like a devil like goatee and mustache.
And
yeah.
like the pointiest nose in history. And Daniel Craig is like fucking chewing that ham. Like chewing it back and forth, like kicking it around in his jaw. Sakharine, of course, one of the legendary screen villains, probably one of the most iconic bad guys in the history of
I see what
cinema.
you're doing here. You're flipping it.
Kids fucking love Sakharine.
Look, it's odd. It's odd that this is what they went for in this movie. Like, Tintin has a lot of cool villains.
Yeah.
A lot of cool villains.
Yeah.
Not a lot of villains like this.
He's kind of a Belloc.
But what?
Belloc from Raiders of the Lost
Raiders of the
Ark,
Lost Ark, right.
where
right.
it's like, for how awesome that movie is and how high the stakes are, that villain doesn't ever seem to be that big of a thing. It's just like, oh, just here's another like
Forget
stuffed
him.
shirt
Yeah, right.
who's like representing, like he's financing the thing that's actually the threat to Indiana Jones.
My problem with Sakharine, and I enjoy Daniel Craig at all times.
I think he's lovely.
I think, I like his voice a lot. I think it is like, just Tintin doesn't really have a lot of villains like that who are like, it'll be mine, I'll kill you, and like,
Right.
his motivations are shaky at best.
Sure.
Is that he's the descendant of the dread pirate Red Rackham,
Well, and that's the point. This movie,
which they invent. But I mean, that doesn't even bother me. It just, I don't really get like why he cares so much.
Sure.
You know, I don't know.
I mean, Tintin has no emotional arc in this movie. The emotional story of this movie is Haddock.
Right.
And Sakharine functions as
That's fair.
a foil, you know?
Yes, to draw out the best in Haddock.
And Haddock is someone who feels like he has collapsed under the weight of his family's reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And Sakharine is someone who has been entirely motivated and empowered by feeling the need to uphold his family's legacy.
Yeah.
Sakharine wants the ship.
Wants that ship.
Some funny stuff with the guy, because Sakharine's like, name your price.
Yeah, and the guy's like, oh, I've been in business for 40 years.
I missed name your price by 4 minutes. Tintin's like, I'm sorry, I want this ship. I like tchotchkes. This is already a thing. Like, I'm in this movie, like, already. I love Tintin. My mom's French. Grew up reading Tintin books, right? She would read them to me. So I love these characters. I'm excited to see them on screen. But now I'm watching Tintin, and it's like, oh, man, Tintin's first stance in the movie is that he doesn't want to sell a toy he bought at a market. This is my kind of character.
Boy, oh boy. I'd name your price, great. $100,000.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Have the boat right now. Wrap it up.
And
Tintin and the $100,000.
Yeah, exactly. And he goes home, and he's like, how will I spend this?
Let's have an adventure.
Yeah, he doesn't care about money, though, as you pointed out, Joe. There's never any worry about, like, shit, how am I going to make ends meet this month?
Look, you could make a list of the things that Tintin doesn't care about, and it would be longer than the list of things that Tintin does care about.
Money, women,
no
power,
interest.
politics.
No interest.
He's not going to school.
Nope.
Nope. not at all.
Education doesn't matter. He likes stories, a good fucking newspaper story,
About adventures.
and he likes adventure.
He likes adventure.
That's
It's
all he
unquenchable, his thirst for adventure.
That's all he likes. Unquenchable.
N-
Unquestionable. I can't fucking do it. I was going to try it again, but I don't want to belly flop again. He goes home and is playing with the thing. The mask comes out. Ooh, discovery. Little silver thing rolls out.
Yeah, but only Snowy sees that.
Only Snowy sees it.
Mm.
Now, this is the thing I love about this movie.
Okay. Now, I want to be clear. I've seen this movie twice. Saw it in theaters,
Uh-huh.
and then I watched it again just now.
Okay.
You've seen this movie how many times?
Probably 45 times.
Yeah, you've seen this movie. You're like an obsessive about this movie.
Yeah, I really like this movie.
It's one of those movies, and I have them too, that you just put it on and it chills you out,
Yep,
and it's
it's
like
a
you
chill-out
know it
movie.
very well,
Yeah.
so it's just sort of fun to see all the beats.
Like last
Joe,
night.
how many times have you seen this motherfucker?
Twice.
You've seen it. You're like me.
And I wish I had actually seen it in the theater because so much happens. Well, we'll get to the action scenes
Sure.
later, but yeah, I
I'm
wish
trying-
I'd seen it.
I think I saw it in 3D.
Because good use of 3D in this movie.
It's got pretty cool 3D.
Yeah.
I don't remember my theatrical experience much apart from that. Like, I think I had to find time.
I
you
can
know.
remember mine. I went to an early screening of it with my father,
Uh-huh.
who did not grow up with Tintin, and
Sure.
would leave the room when my mom read Tintin books to me. And I sat
that's a
there with my
little rude.
father. It was I don't fucking kiss some kid in a sweater. What am I paying attention to? Not knowing that someday his son would grow up to become some kid in a sweater.
It's true.
Yeah, I feel like I've modeled a lot of my life after Tintin, like unconsciously. But I sat there watching with my dad. My dad got invited to this Tintin screen and was like, "Hey, you like Tintin, right? Do you want to go see Tintin with me?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, I want to go see Tintin with you." We went and saw it. I just sat next to my father and I was like pumping my fist. We were in this tiny screening room that was like maybe 20 people in total, and it was like all like business people, and like no one was excited. And I was there going like, "Fucking Tintin!" Everyone else was just sitting there stoic, and my dad was like, "What the fuck is this shit? Like, what? Who cares?"
Yeah, he didn't know that this was like people were going to be into this.
Yeah, it's for nerds. But yes, what I like about this movie a lot. I mean, as you pointed out, yes, I do know every micro detail of this movie, and I've tracked all the minor plot
Because
developments
you're
along.
like, oh, here's an element I love in the scene where the mask breaks, and I'm
Right.
like, what?
Well, but this is the thing I like about this movie, right? Spielberg's a details guy, and we talk about him being like a setup payoff guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is how he uses the camera in editing and how he uses camera moves, motivated camera moves to draw your attention to things,
I love it.
underline things, right? This movie is Spielberg being like, what if a camera could do fucking anything?
That's what I love about
Yeah.
this movie.
What if it you made a steady cam
What if I
movie?
give you a 15-minute unbroken action shot that
Right.
doesn't feel even like it's, rubbing it in your face?
and the
yeah.
steady cam operator was Superman.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And you could go
Fly.
anywhere at any point. So
Right.
there's just shit like the mask breaking and the silver thing falling out where I feel like Beowulf would go into the territory of just the camera can do anything, and it would just feel crazy, and it would just feel like you're zooming around.
Sure.
In this, it feels like Spielberg's very grounded in it is a camera. I'm just acting like it's a magic camera that can change sizes and move in any direction.
Yeah.
So there's shit like the silver mask falling out, which he's able to track as one camera move,
This is a fair point.
underneath a cabinet where a camera could never fit without having to build a whole set for that.
Right.
And you
why
get
would
the
you
dog's
bother?
POV.
Yeah.
And without Snowy having to like fucking emote in a human way, you see what Snowy sees and that he knows it's there, and you set up that element.
Which, really quick aside, in the books, Snowy does emote in a human way. Snowy
Correct.
talks, Snowy has thought bubbles, he communicates with Tintin, and in the
He
movie...
does, although it's sort of like odd. Like Tintin doesn't. I don't know. He can't communicate with people, but he can talk to Tintin.
Well, it was always
but
kind
you
of
never
the
can get
Garfield
if like
thing.
Tintin totally knows what he's saying, or if Tintin's more just sort of like, "Good job, Snowy."
Well, because that's the
Like they don't
Garfield.
have conversations.
In Garfield,
Right.
where they were like, "Hey, Snowy, how's your day?" They never do that. But like with Garfield, there's that thing where like, okay, Garfield's in thought bubbles, but sometimes it feels like what John Arbuckle's saying is responding, and
Amen.
sometimes it's just like maybe they're on parallel tracks.
Yeah.
They wisely, as in most adaptations of Tintin, chose to make him nonverbal.
Mhm.
But he's a smart dog, and
Very.
you get a lot out of him. This guy's expressive.
What do you think of Snowy, Joe?
I like the Snowy. I like Snowy in the comics. I like Snowy this adaptation.
Mm.
Another quick aside regarding
Please.
Snowy. Carol Kolb, who was the former editor of The Onion, she was a huge Tintin fan, still is, and she loved Snowy and Tintin so much she got a dog, same breed, almost identical to Snowy, and it's named Dummy. In her Hergé, in a Hergé homage.
I've met Dummy a number of times. I didn't know that was his backstory.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He's
Good dog.
I
Great
want
dog.
to. I just want to say something about Snowy.
Sure.
Snowy's my least favorite part of the movie. I don't love Snowy. I love Snowy, like
Right.
the dog.
Right, because Snowy's one of my 4 or 5 best friends. So if you could just
Agreed.
go on and tread carefully.
But I mean, for some
tread
reason,
lightly.
I don't mind it. But I guess it's that he's not mocap. He's just an animated.
He's straight
creature.
animated. Yes.
For some reason, he's not quite right for Snowy to me. But maybe whatever. He's not my Snowy. He's fine.
Sure.
I can see
But
that.
he's not my favorite part of the movie.
I mean, I can
You
see
seem
that.
very suspicious.
Well, no, I'm trying to put a case together. Like Tintin, I'm gathering clues for my story I'll file at the end of this episode.
Well, let me go. Let me back him up in as far as he doesn't like in the book because he actually says things. He has a personality. That's
Right, he
very
has sort of a
defined.
stream of consciousness, yeah.
He's not as defined of a. He's not a defined character. He's just.
Sure.
I mean, he's a
He's
dog.
more of a helpful dog.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like, Snowy's a little more of an ironic commentator in the books.
Uh-huh.
And he has more of a personality. He has weaknesses. He likes bones.
and
Loves
he likes alcohol.
He likes alcohol, which
Yeah.
they probably wisely don't really get into.
They. They do. He in the plane. He actually slurps up some of the.
Oh, that's right. He does. That's true. That's right. That's the one time
A
he
little
he
tip of the
competes
cap.
with Haddock. Yeah.
yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, in the movie he's fine. He's a good dog. He's a good dog.
He's a good dog.
I think he's a good dog.
Yeah.
I'd love to have him on my side
Oh, me
in
too.
any adventure.
Hey, I don't
I
want
lo-
to be against you.
I like his sequence early in the movie where he chases Tintin.
Fun chase.
I think it's a good chase.
Yeah.
Whatever. Maybe Snowy's just not quite what I imagine Snowy to be. That's all. He's fine. He's good.
Okay.
He's okay.
That's fair. Just remember, he is one of my 4 or 5 best friends.
Who are the others?
My best friends?
Yeah.
Woody the Cowboy.
Rob-
Jerry Maguire.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess
Yeah.
RoboCop.
RoboCop's one of my 4 or 5 best friends. Yeah.
He's a little stiff, that guy.
Yeah, but he gets the job
He's
done.
got a good heart. At the end of the day, deep down, he's got a good heart. And then my 5th best friend is you. Of course.
Oh,
We're the
that's
two friends.
nice. We are the two
We're
friends.
the 2 friends.
Okay. So wait, so you love how the camera can like fuck around with this.
Right, you can draw
Jumping
your
behind the
attention.
desk and
Yes,
all that.
Yes, and make it all dynamic. But this is they got the silver capsule. People break in, they steal.
They steal the boat, but they don't get the capsule. It's
Right.
Slip behind the desk.
while Tintin's out investigating.
Tintin is intrigued. Yeah, rather than reacting with like, fuck, my apartment got ransacked, he's like, no, this means that boat though. That's a
going.
good boat.
Hey, also, this kid has a way nicer apartment than I do.
No
or
kidding.
ever
Yeah.
had.
Belgium in the 30s, you could do pretty well on a reporter's salary.
Apparently.
Yeah, but see, Ben, you have a lot of vices and interests. That's the thing. Tintin just doesn't waste any time chasing ladies,
That's true.
going out,
Yeah.
studying fashion. You know, Tintin's like stories, adventures, done. That's how he gets his rent.
Sure.
And he likes books.
He likes books.
They make a point of that in the comic. His when they ransack his apartment, he's mad because one of his books is ruined. So
He likes books.
he
He's
likes
a reader.
books.
He's got a landlady, Mrs. What's her name?
Landlady.
She has like a name.
Oh, yeah.
Mrs. Finch, right.
Sure.
Who is very used to all these antics. You
Mhm.
know, when like someone gets knocked out on her front door, she's like, oh,
This again.
Once again.
No.
Around this time, they set up the Thompson thing where they are two identical detectives.
Yeah, although they are not related because one is with a P and one's without.
Played by Nick Frost and Simon Pegg, and very clever casting.
Agreed.
And they're looking for a pickpocket.
They are.
The pickpocket we saw from the beginning of the film,
Mr.
who we now
Silk.
can recognize through gesture.
Sure, played by Toby Jones.
Who I always thought would make a good Professor Calculus.
Maybe. I always imagined calculus is French. I mean, of course, all the characters are technically supposed to be Belgian or whatever, but like I always actually imagine calculus
with a French accent.
as a European,
Right.
not a Brit.
Well, so then hire Ewan McGregor.
Oh, sure, yeah, right, yeah. You know what? Let me it'll have come out, I think, by the time we release this episode. But Beauty and the Beast looks like dog shit. That's what it looks like.
Now, do you
looks
think,
like a piece of shit.
But don't you think most?
I'm
of the
willing
time,
to be wrong,
right? Because
like,
I feel
prove
like
me
you
wrong,
were saying the same thing about
Bill
Jungle
Condon.
Book last year.
Jungle Book was okay. I
don't think that movie's great either.
Yeah,
but you were very against it before it came out, and then you saw it and you were like, surprisingly functional.
I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, it works. Although
works.
I'll admit, like a week later, I was like, well, there was a Jungle Book. Like,
Yeah.
Jon Favreau made a Jungle Book movie. I had no idea. Like, it did vanish from memory.
Sure. Whereas I tweeted about how excited I was to masturbate to the Jungle Book.
Yeah,
and then Saul was a little underwhelmed.
You got like half mast, and you're like, you know what, this isn't.
Yeah, I got a semi.
But but the Jungle Book, at least you're like, okay, you know, animals. Like, this is something where there's some reason to do this.
In live action, sure.
Beauty and the Beast, I'm looking at the trailer, I'm like, you just made Beauty and the Beast, the cartoon that is good.
Yeah.
You just did it again. You did the exact same thing, except it's live action. Like, it looks like the exact same fucking thing, but worse.
My dad and I were watching TV, and the ad for the new Beauty and the Beast came on, and he went, "So is that based off the Broadway show?"
Oh God, your dad's weird.
Yeah, I was
He's like a troll.
I mean, yes, by
but yes.
association.
I mean, no, it's not. It's based on the cartoon.
What kind of question is that? Yes,
it's like seeing Shrek 5 and be like, is that the Broadway musical?
Is that based on Shrek the musical? It's like, well, in the sense that the Shrek the musical is based on Shrek, and this is the fifth Shrek. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you disagree with me that Beauty and the Beast looks like a sack of crap? I mean, you look at like the animation of the cups in the cartoon, and then you look at the live action where they're like, we put a face on a cup. I don't know. Like, you know, I didn't think too hard about this.
This is the one point where I disagree with you.
Put a face on a clock.
By the time this episode comes out, the movie will be already released. It'll have made $1 billion, and everyone will already have their opinion on it.
Sure.
I think the movie doesn't look good. I like the design of it a lot more than you do.
I don't mind the design of a lot of it. I just for some reason the Cogsworth and the Lumiere, all those those don't.
I think I like the way the Lumiere and Cogsworth look. I'm really against the fact they didn't hire Jean Dujardin to play Lumiere because that guy is a fucking human French candle.
It's true.
That's the one part he's designed to play.
He is a French candle.
He won a goddamn Oscar. Let him play Lumiere.
Shouldn't have won an Oscar.
He shouldn't have. They should have saved it so they could give him Best Supporting Actor for playing
Ewan
Lumiere.
McGregor is playing Lumiere.
Yeah.
That's just weird. Like every time I know that, and yet every time I say it, I'm like, wait, really? You're sure he's not playing the clock?
Yeah, and he said, like, they offered him the part, and he was like, oh, my wife is French. I probably can do a good French accent. They brought him in, and his French accent was terrible. By his own admission, they had to redub and reshoot all of his shit.
Huh.
Because he was like, yeah, it was much harder than I thought. I had to, like, two goes at bat.
Why him? Maybe make a sequel to the movie Why Him, but this time it's about Disney casting Ewan McGregor in the live-action Beauty and the Beast. One more thing. This is on the record. I want this on the record because we're doing on the record right now.
Sure.
Because the movie will have come out.
Yeah.
I think Luke Evans looks great as Gaston, and I'm excited for the Gaston scene.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm excited
And he can sing. He's a good singer.
Yeah.
So, on the record. I hope he lived up to
One
that.
more thing on the record. By the time this episode comes out, I assume they will have already announced greenlit a sequel to Why Him.
Yeah, of course, about Ewan McGregor. And Bill Condon.
Yes. And then also the sequel, How? Her?
What's that one about?
It's about James Franco's parents meeting Zoe Deutch.
Good.
How? Her?
It made money. Why him?
Yeah.
Made like $70 million.
Yeah, it's like made like 20 more than like Fences.
It's made like 100 more than Silence.
Yeah. Topical things people will want to hear in May.
Sorry. All right, what happens in the rest of Tintin? He goes on an adventure.
Yeah.
Joe's looking at his watch.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking at my fingernail because a little pain in my finger. No, carry on.
Do you bite your nails, Joe?
I do bite my nails. I'm a regular biter. I'm a nail
Yeah.
biter.
Yeah,
Do you
me
fuck with
too.
the cuticles or just the nail
I fuck
itself?
with the cuticles.
I go down and then I guess I kind of like fidget with the cuticles. I don't bite the.
You don't bite
cuticles
the cuticles.
if I can help
Okay.
it.
I'm worse. I bite
Yeah.
the cuticles.
My dad, who's getting a lot of airtime in this episode, like picks at the cuticles only.
It's gross. It's gross.
Yeah,
And
he's
yet-
got bloody hands. He hates Tintin, and he thinks Beauty and the Beast is based off the Broadway show.
what an asshole.
This is kind of like therapy for you in a way, isn't it?
Oh,
It's like
that's all this is.
I love you, Papa.
Talking about his jerking off to the Jungle Book and his
I
best
didn't.
friend,
I was talking
Snowy.
about wanting to jerk off to the Jungle Book. I
Indeed.
didn't do it.
All right, so Tintin, he smells adventure, and sure enough, adventure is on the way because a guy gets shot in his doorstep and says you should go to the Cariboujan.
He's got his
He-
blood on
he
his
does
hands,
the-
and he hits the thing in the newspaper.
It's not very much blood, though. I mean, that guy
Just
got shot.
enough.
Yeah, like so much.
Just enough to finger
Well, you
some
think
letters.
he should just like explode, like blood should just fly everywhere?
He should
I
just
believe
have
this movie was
guts
rated
hanging
PG.
out. I mean, come
it's,
on.
it's a Nickelodeon movie.
they did have people getting eaten by sharks. It was not gruesome, but it was
That's
kind
true.
of
That's true.
frightening.
They're getting eaten by sharks.
You get bit by a shark, that water's going to get red.
And is there
That's very dark in that scene, Ben.
Not red.
is there
enough.
a children's movie that is more centered around alcoholism than The Adventures of Tintin?
I don't know.
It actually made me feel a little self-conscious.
Yeah, you saw some of yourself in Haddock.
I did.
Yeah, you know, he's got a problem, and it's not just that he wants alcohol; it's like a self-worth thing. That's what I like about it. It's not just a cartoon alcoholic problem. Go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, like, it's like the memory thing, you know?
Yes. Right. Yes.
Like, it made me, I was like, on one hand, feeling nostalgic for this kind of story, but then I'm also like, but what was my childhood like? I don't remember.
No, Ben, I think you had a backward baseball cap and a slingshot, and you rode around on a skateboard, and you
I think we
shot
remember.
firecrackers into like
shoplifting.
police stations or whatever the fucking sane shit you did.
All you have to do is drink a bunch of whiskey, and then you can magically remember 4 generations past in your lineage.
Well, excuse me, you have to be in the desert.
Oh, that's true.
So Tintin gets on the Cariboujan.
Because the blood tells him.
Mm-hmm.
That would have taken a lot longer than any other clue he could have given, because
Yes.
that means he's like perpetually pointing, like poking
Yeah, that's
his
true.
wound
Yeah.
to get it, and then like he has to keep
It's a
dabbing.
long name.
And then the
Yeah.
other thing is he has to find the appropriate letters in the right order.
Right.
Because Tintin isn't going to do like a fucking word jumble to be like, okay, Cariboujan. Like that could end up being like 4 more obvious things.
Right. The I mean, and it's an Armenian word, and it's not like that's not Tintin's. Belgian is his language, not
Right.
not
Well, French, let's be clear.
French. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, unless
you're right.
he's
I apologize.
Flemish, but I don't believe so.
I don't think
Yeah.
so either.
No, you're right. It's not a word that trips off the tongue, Cariboujan.
Cariboujan.
But he finds it nonetheless. It's a boat.
He leaves Snowy at home. He's like, let me get on this boat.
But no, then he gets like kidnapped. Right?
Oh, yes,
yeah.
yes.
He gets
yes.
kidnapped like right away by Alan.
Delivery from Mr. Tintin.
Yeah.
I didn't order anything. No, the delivery is you.
Yeah, he takes his time with it.
Chloroform.
Yeah. He gets kidnapped by Alan, who's not in these books.
He is.
But he is in the but he's in the he's not in the
He's in
unicorn. He's in
different.
the crab with the golden claws.
Right.
Right.
Which
But
this movie incorporates a lot of Golden Claw stuff because that's
Yes.
the Haddock origin
Yeah.
meeting. Yes.
Exactly. And he's in other stuff too. He's a classic
He was in
Tintin
She's Out of My
heavy.
League. Yeah.
He was in She's Out of My League. He was in Just Like Heaven.
Yeah.
He's
He's a DreamWorks repertory player.
he's played by Daniel Mays, who's like a Mike Lee guy. I love that it's all these Brits, all these sort of like
Yeah.
C-list Brits. It's
Got a
great.
pointy nose and a great coat.
If only David
Good-
Thewlis
good
was
hat,
in it,
too.
that would have been.
Yeah, Thulis should have shown
I feel
up.
like Thulis could be a good calculus too.
Thulis could be a good, saccharine.
Yes.
I think Daniel Craig is good,
I
just
do
to
too.
be clear.
Yeah, I think he's really fun
Yeah.
in this.
It's just, I guess it's just an odd character. I just want more from the villain. I want
Yeah.
the villain to really pop. Or to do more of a classic Tintin where it's like, there's not really a big villain. It's just like the gears of drug smuggling or, it's just Tintin's just going up against Vice.
Or the villain is actually revealed in 6 very text-dense panels
Yeah, right.
in a row where it's like,
Yeah.
and then it was because we were interested in this that we sent, and it's just that you're
right.
like,
that
oh,
are all
well,
the
that makes
interior
sense.
monologue of a dog.
Right. Tintin ex machina, pretty much, is how they all end.
Tintin was kind of the original A Dog's Purpose.
God. So no, all right. So that'll have come out too. But I just saw a trailer for that. That's the dog keeps getting reincarnated?
Uh-huh.
So we have to see the
Oh,
dog
God.
die over and over again?
Yeah, they were like, what if Marley and Me happened 6 times?
What the fuck is that? And is the dog always called, like, Bailey or whatever the hell it all is?
Yeah, and every time the dog dies, you're like, maybe a new voice. Oh, no, it's still Josh Gad.
Oh, it's Josh Gad?
It's all of the dogs.
You'd have to... I'm a film critic, and you'd have to pay me $100,000 to see that movie. I swear to God. I wouldn't do it.
I would
wouldn't do
never-
it if you put a gun in me.
The one thing that makes
You'd
me
have to shoot me with the gun.
the one thing that makes me cry is watching a dog get injured in a movie.
Yeah, right.
He was injured. There was a dog injured in VHS Viral, and I almost lost it.
VHS Viral.
Sorry, no.
Is that the third VHS?
it is the third.
I don't think I saw that one. I
It's
saw
not-
VHS 2,
It was not very good.
which was was called SVHS, wasn't it?
They
Yes.
said it was going to be, but,
But then they
didn't they
didn't.
retitle it?
I was
Yeah.
really into it being called
Me
SVHS.
too.
I really want to shout out to... Should they do a Betamax?
They should do DVD.
Oh, DVD? That's a little crap. Laserdisc.
Yeah. But no, and God, there was a movie too with
Hit clips.
Real player.
there was an 80s movie. I saw one scene in which a dog dies. I was flipping through channels. I saw a dog die. I had no context for it, and I just lost it.
It's tough with a dog dying.
Yeah, I will never see this Josh Gad film. Never.
He's also in Beauty and the Beast.
I'll never see that film either.
No
Because
dogs.
Josh Gad has ruined that for me as well.
Yeah,
by
well,
association.
because let's say you're a big Angry Birds fan, and his casting as Yellow really
He's in
pissed
the
you
Angry
off.
Birds movie?
Yeah. You think if a guy like that hits gold and comes up with one iconic, like, voice-acted character that's going down in the annals of animation history, like one of the most
You mean
merchandised
that fucking
characters.
snowman?
Yeah, but whether or not you love
What's
it,
his
it's like,
name again? Like Claude or something?
it's a,
You don't know what it is.
Olaf.
Olaf. There you go.
You know what I'm saying? He's, like, very iconic.
Yeah, sure.
You'd think he'd be like, great, I got my one. Don't keep tapping that vein.
You know, it's funny, though. I agree with you, but it's funny how all the kids I know who are into Frozen, they're all fucking into Frozen. Don't get me.
Kids fucking love her.
They like
Yeah.
the girls. They don't like the snowman or the boys or the moose or like all their iconography that they have,
Yeah.
all their plates and
The
bibs
princesses are
and
the big thing.
cups
Yeah.
are the princesses.
Should I watch Frozen,
Yeah.
guys?
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
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 Do you want to build a snowman?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then sounds
you
like you
go.
want to watch Frozen.
Oh, it's about snowmen.
Well, there are snowmen involved.
I thought it was about death.
Well, every Disney movie is a little
Yeah,
bit about
right,
that.
a little bit. Yeah.
It's kind of about learning to accept yourself for who you are, much like any Disney movie.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
Well, back on subject, Snowy in this movie does the opposite of dying. He survives.
Thank God.
They kidnap Tintin, but he's on the case, and he goes on a daring chase, and he
Cool.
makes his
It's a cool
own
chase.
way. And it's a great example
This
of
is
Spielberg having the great untethered camera.
Yeah, this is one of, I guess, like 3 or 4 action sequences in the film where halfway through you're like, you sort of, you finally dawns and you're like, right, the camera's not cutting
Yeah.
and it's doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, yeah, like
You're
you
like
say.
tracking along the top of a fire truck, and then it like when the jumps over to a different truck, you jump over with him.
Right.
I feel like the movie does a good job in very subtle ways of like approximating a human hand behind the camera.
Right.
Like without feeling like an over embellishment, there are like little shakes, and when they're like in on a boat, the camera like shifts a little bit in a
Sure.
way that isn't overly heightened, but it's like, oh, if there were a real camera operator here, the boat would be shifting and that stuff.
This is an advanced version of what George Lucas was doing. You know, this is the kind of shit George Lucas is playing around with.
100%.
Just in a, not as good a way. And the Wachowskis are playing around with
Well, and the Spielberg
in
thing.
the Matrix
Yes.
sequels.
The Lucas thing was like, I want to control every element of a movie. I want to have a movie where I have complete control over it, and also I don't actors drive me crazy, right?
Sure.
And this movie feels like the opposite, where it's like Spielberg having complete control, where he can design every single element, but he doesn't go over the top. The movie moves fast, but it's not like insane in the way that Revenge of the Sith is.
No.
And it's also very performance-based. Like, it's a movie that, like, is people, like, giving these great, like, grand theatrical performances.
You love this movie.
I do. But then
Yeah.
there are also fucking things like when they're trying to Thompson are chasing after the pickpocket, and he like runs into the woman, and then they pan over to him, and there are the birds flying around his head. And you're
Yeah,
like,
right. That's good.
Yeah.
But
oh,
there
that's
are,
the Looney Tunes thing, and it's like,
they
oh no, then
are
there's a
real
guy
birds.
with a cage.
The guy comes with the net, and he sort of
Right.
scoops them up very quietly. I love that.
No, that's like such a Spielberg detail, and if he did that in live action, A, it would be impossible, or
You'd
B,
think-
it'd be CGI birds, and you'd be like,
You'd
"Oh,
think this
fuck
is too
you."
cute even for Spielberg.
Right.
Yeah.
But he can get away with those cute things, or like once they're on the ship, the Cariboujan, there's the thing where they're going in, they're sneaking into the stocks to try to find the keys. And when he goes in, the boat is shifting back and forth, and there are rows of all these bunk beds, and all the sailors are shifting with it. Like, that stuff's, like, fucking cool.
Love that stuff. How do you feel about this stuff?
I liked it, but that's where it would have been helpful to see it on the big screen, because when I'm watching it on I admittedly pedestrian 28-inch television. It's
Ain't nothing wrong with 28.
Nothing wrong with it. It's fine, but it's
It's a gentleman's TV size.
Yeah, exactly. For a nice compact area. But you don't get the whole sense of you don't get the sense of the room at all.
Yeah.
You just sort of so it would have been great if I'd seen it in the theater. But it was a great scene. It's like really builds up a lot of nice tension.
Yeah, that scene is good because it's like, Haddock sets the stakes. So we should, he gets on the Caribouge and he finds Captain Haddock, who's this drunkard, who's technically like the captain, but he's just like a drunkard.
He thinks that he's locked into a room. And
Right, he's not even locked in the room. And so Haddock wants to get the keys to the booze, and Haddock says, like, okay, well, be careful. Don't wake any of these guys up. And he keeps being like, that guy, for example, he'll do this and like that.
Animal husbandry.
And so we've got the thing of like, Tintin needs to be quiet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the boat's rocking around. They're all falling onto each other. None of them are waking up. Like, it's a funny little subversion of a set piece we might have seen many times. The creeping around set piece, except no, it's not. It's
and you get into this thing like we talked.
It's like a funhouse version.
In the Crystal Skull episode, like I was talking about what I don't like about the sword fighting sequence, where Mutt Williams is like standing between the two moving vehicles, and it's just like it feels so ungrounded because the actors feel so disconnected.
All right, so this is your point, and I think it's a fair point. It's like you're saying with this, he's getting to do some of the tricks he's trying to pull in Crystal Skull. They don't work in Crystal Skull because it's an uncanny valley in and of itself. Our eyes see and we do not believe.
Yes.
And in this, it's like we're like, oh, we get it. This is fake, so we can be. This is a cartoon.
Right.
So now we can accept these things.
And it's just about having a cohesive reality. Like Wizard of Oz looks fake as shit, but it's heightened and stylized, and you accept that the real actors are in front of those real sets, and the stakes feel real to you, even though they don't feel like actual danger.
You know about the Wizard of Oz, though?
What?
Never on a Lloyd team.
Never on a Lloyd team.
Yes.
Love that callback.
This is your first time making that joke, and David, I'd like to grant you 100 comedy points.
Oh, my God, it was delightful. Oh, boy.
But this is an example of a movie where they can get
he
away.
He loves this movie, doesn't he?
He does.
I love watching him love it.
I do too. It's like I'm surprised. I was not sure if I was going to get this much passion out of this discussion, but I should have known better from Griffin.
It's fun.
Hey, I'm giving you the honor.
As long as you like a movie, it's fun talking that movie with someone who knows it inside out.
Yeah.
Now, if I did not like Tintin, I might be like, Jesus Christ, every scene's a masterpiece with you guys? Like, come on, like, Jesus. He's just getting the fucking keys. It's not like, Jacques Demy or whatever.
It's like a sparkling wine.
Uh-huh. Light. Refreshing.
Yeah, and like fun, but it's got an air of sophistication to it,
Gives you a bit of a headache if you look at it too long.
Sure, it's a little creepy. My dad's not a fan.
It mimics gunshots in the Tintin film.
Yes. But all those sort of things, it's like all these kind of cute Spielberg moments that he's able to earn by the movie's sort of like general kind of like charmed like tone of whimsy and the fact that he makes it like a visually cohesive universe.
Yeah.
Tintin and Haddock, that he has to get the keys, and then this is a major setup point. Risks his life seemingly to go in this room and steal the keys away, and then because they have to go in the closet and get some supplies, they go in. What's the closet full of? Booze. Haddock only cares about booze. All he likes is booze. He put this young reporter at risk for booze, and immediately, here's the push and pull of Haddock and Tintin. Haddock, just a drunk. That's all he cares about. Is a drunk. He's got a chip on his shoulder, right? I think he wants to prove people wrong.
Right, but he is a drunk.
Right.
First and foremost.
He's self-loathing, and
right.
he's making up for. He's compensating it with the bottle.
And Tintin is a young boy of endless empathy, but doesn't particularly care for Haddock, but he needs Haddock, because he can tell that Haddock's part of this bigger story somehow, and that it's connected to the legacy of his family.
Yes, but I think also Tintin, he's like a pain-in-the-ass friend who wants to, like, help you out. You know what I mean? Like, he loves a project. Haddock's like a fun project for him. Like,
yes.
Only Tintin could look at this man and think, I can get this guy off the sauce.
It's kind
Anyone
of a
else
romantic
just looks
comedy.
at Haddock and is like, oh, he's a, desolate drunk.
Right.
Like, all I'm going to do with this guy is either ignore him or manipulate him.
But he gazes longingly into Haddock's little beady eyes and goes, I can fix him.
But he doesn't do it for any other reason besides the fact he wants to further his story.
Sure.
He doesn't do it because of his love of Haddock.
No.
At that point,
I think the love develops.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And Haddock definitely drives Tintin up the wall, and they have one moment where Tintin's, kind of belief in him shatters.
Yeah, which I think is well played.
I do too, because it's not too big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they get right back together. It's not like they split apart for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tintin's on board.
Right. So Tintin and Haddock escape. They get out in a little lifeboat.
Yeah, there's a
Daring
whole
chase. They give
whole
chase.
crazy fucking fight scene with
Yeah.
guns going everywhere. They're running up and down stairs. Go ahead, Joe.
Good use of the camera there because you never know. I mean, it follows him on multiple decks, but you
Mhm.
never feel like it's doing anything impossible.
Yes. This movie also, I think it has really, really good cinematic geography.
Yes, except for later in the film, the crane scene at the end I thought was. But
Gets,
we'll
a
get
little,
into it.
gets a little wackadoo.
Yeah. We'll
but like stuff
yeah,
like
the crane
that,
scene I don't like.
you can tell that he's not taking shortcuts and the boat is built fully
Yeah,
within
totally.
that computer. And when you're tracking through these
Definitely.
rooms,
Yeah.
it's like,
Every room makes sense. The
That is
layout
very
is
true.
totally
Yeah.
well realized.
Which is, that's very true to Tintin.
Yeah.
Hergé
Pro
was
ship.
obsessed with...
pro ship, very pro ship.
it's not a Smith ship.
No.
Let's be clear. It's the Caraboudjan.
Yeah. Jimmy Smits would be a good Professor Calculus.
Ooh, baby.
I mean, you're just sort of naming actors in their 40s and 50s who are good.
Smith has got to be in his 60s though by now.
Yeah,
No.
he must be.
Jimmy Smith.
But he's aging like a fine sparkling wine.
Jimmy Smith is 61 years old.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's even crazier he's never on Lloyd's team. So, Tintin
There was
and
an Ellen,
Haddock.
there's an Ellen Barkin Jimmy Smits movie that just came up.
Switch?
Yeah, it just came up. I was going through Laserdiscs I own,
Sure.
and I was like, "Oh, there's Switch. I don't know anything about this." And I put it back, and then moments later, Luis Diaz, who's a comedy producer, tweeted, "One of my favorite movies is Switch." I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Because
That's-
nobody ever talks.
I
about
believe
Switch.
that
So
was
Blake Edwards joined
the
us.
last Blake Edwards movie.
Is it the last
perhaps?
one?
It's Jimmy Smits, who's
No.
like a chauvinist pig, is reincarnated in Ellen Barkin's body.
Really?
Yeah.
He made Son of the Pink Panther.
Oh.
That was his
Oh.
last. That was his
That's
last.
not
the one
a-
with Benigni. I believe.
Never end on Benigni. That's what they say about filmographies. Never end on Benigni.
They do say that.
Yeah. And that's why Benigni is doomed.
Benigni is doomed.
His last film will have to be a Benigni movie.
That's-
There's no way around it.
Well, what if he directs but doesn't act in it?
It's still a Benigni movie. It's a Roberto Benigni picture. A film by Roberto Benigni.
You're not wrong.
Poor
Or Roberto Benigni.
Roberto
Now I'm
Benigni.
looking at Roberto Benigni's.
Well, I'm thinking about
recent
like
career.
yeah,
He's
it's
in that
fine.
Woody Allen movie.
He was really good in that. Yeah.
He's a good
he was,
actor.
He was great in Night on Earth. It was
Oh,
yeah.
very
The
charming.
back
He's
in the
good
day,
in the Jarmusch films. Yeah, I would have given him a Best Supporting Actor Griffey for To Run with Love.
the award or just a nomination?
Nomination.
Okay.
Nomination. Come on, I'm not crazy. I think that same year I would have given Haddock a Best Supporting Actor. I don't remember when To Run with Love came out. It probably came out later.
Run with Love's the next year, right? 12,
So
yeah.
yes, that's right. So Tintin and Haddock escape into a lifeboat.
Haddock played by Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
To be clear,
Really good in
Jackson
this.
alum.
Yeah.
He is good.
Yeah.
It's the kind of role he kicks ass at.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't always love Serkis, but I think he's great in this.
He gets to be funnier in this than I feel like he usually does. He often
Sure.
plays characters that are comedic but are not like are humorous rather but not comedic.
Yeah.
This he gets to really make use of like comic timing and line delivery.
Mm-hmm.
My dad loved Haddock. I'll say this: like once Haddock showed up, my dad
Haddock's
started laughing
a
a lot.
pretty lovable character.
Yeah, he just thought this guy was funny. He liked every time he reached for the bottle. They get in the boat and immediately Tintin's seeing like, oh fuck, this Haddock guy starts a fire in the boat because he's cold, drinking liquor. Like this is a nightmare.
Yeah,
nightmare.
And this is also, this is the beginning of Haddock realizing, like, God, like, what's happened to me? I don't
Yeah.
remember the story of the Haddock family.
I don't have my boat anymore.
I'm a seaman, but I'm burning the oars of the lifeboat. Like, what kind of a able seaman does that, right?
Yeah, my only friend is some kid with a hair poof.
It's the comic drunkenness plays off a lot better in the comics though.
That is true.
Because it's like it's a lot more funnier when you have a guy like with sort of like drunk
He's
lines
got
coming
the
out of
drunk
his
lines
head. Like,
or like a little spinny circle.
yeah, and he's sort of like frozen in like some sort of like obviously off kilter pose. But when he's actually in motion, it seems a little bit more like the stakes are high, and you're just like, oh, that's really kind of sad.
He's an aggressive man.
Right.
Too.
He's an aggressive
Yeah,
man.
Right.
Well, that's what I kind of like about this movie is that
No, I know what you mean. It's weird.
it's weird, certainly,
Like-
but also that like in the comics they're able to play his drunkenness as more of just like a frivolous, like funny character detail. And in this, because they were aware that like portraying this character dramatically and spending an hour and a half with him, you're going to get sad about the fact that he's drunk all the time. Without it becoming like Flight, this movie does become about like Haddock having to figure out how to fucking like take his life back.
Yeah.
You know? Like they make his alcoholism a problem rather than just like, oh yeah, that's Haddock, he's the drunk.
But back on track. Their oars are on fire.
Yes.
Haddock is like, oh, what have I done? Then all of a sudden, the boat is upside down. They've extinguished the fire, and they spot a plane in the distance. They're rescued, or are they? Oh.
They're shooting at
Cool
him.
yellow plane.
Yeah.
Very English patient.
Tintin pulls out his gun. Bad news, we only have one bullet. What's the good news? We have one bullet.
Yeah, it's sort of a
Cool!
yeah. He's rarely
Yeah.
cool, but this is a line where he's suddenly like, "I'm going to be cool."
Tintin's my boy.
Shoots that plane out of the air.
Yeah.
In a way, but he shoots it in a way that's easy to repair the plane
Yes.
later, which is even better.
Right. That's true. He causes engine trouble that is fixable.
And then Haddock's like, can you fly this? And he's like, yeah, I trained to be a pilot. Tintin's gotten a lot done for like a 16-year-old.
Tintin.
Tintin
Shoots the
seems to have
plane.
gone to like 4
They fly the
vocational
plane.
schools.
Right,
Yeah.
but I mean, the joke is he's like, yeah, I know how to fly a plane. And
Yeah.
you're like, he doesn't really. But
I
he figured he's
interviewed a
good at
pilot,
everything.
Yeah. They get in the plane. They identify, oh boy, here's some like medical alcohol.
This keeps happening.
Very,
Yeah.
This
very
is something
accurate.
that is even like, because there's moments in this movie that are more cartoonish than the cartoon.
Yes.
Like, at no time in the cartoon does Haddock burp alcohol into a plane's fuel, like,
Fuselage.
yeah, to
Well-
make it go.
But that's charming.
I basically agree. It just, you couldn't pull that off. It's
No,
just funny
no,
that
you
you couldn't put that off in the book.
That's very
Yeah.
Spielbergy, and it gets into the Funhouse Spielberg of like
Yeah.
what are like exciting Rube Goldberg contraptions I can
Right.
set up. If this guy's drunk and the plane is running out, then what do? He breathes in the plane. But also the plane's flipping upside down, and so they're in like 0G, and the alcohol's flying in the sky, and he's able to like drink it like a fucking astronaut.
Yeah.
This is, I guess. I mean, it's a thrilling landing, and Haddock has to get up on the engine. Tintin thinks he still has the alcohol.
Right.
Pour it in. Instead, he has to breathe into it. You go to inside the motor. You see it spark up. Land. Not ready to land yet. No land. And then they crash. And then now they're in the desert.
Right.
True.
The Land of Thirst.
The land of
The Land of
The
Thirst.
Land of Thirst.
Which is a
Haddock
movie that
seeing
didn't-
Mirages.
They didn't make that. That line was in the book. Didn't make the
They
movie.
make it in
Which
the
is
book. They say it all the time.
It's great.
It
It's
is
like
great.
the Land of Thirst. And he's just like, and you could just feel his desperation when that
It's
conversation.
the best. I
Land of
love
Thirst.
that. Those books introduced me to the idea of mirages, which I thought were like more of a problem when I was a kid. Like, I thought that was something that you'd have to deal with all the time.
That
Like,
and
you would say
quicksand.
mirage.
Yes. Right. It's like that Malayan joke about quicksand.
Yeah.
It's like mirages seem to be like omnipresent.
They're like,
and,
it's a mirage. Like, be careful. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's just when you think you see water and you don't, right?
Well,
like,
in Looney Tunes, there was always the thing where people would think that someone else was food.
that's
They'd
true.
look at someone and they turn to like a T-bone steak.
That's true.
In the book, they do that with Tintin, and it turns into a bottle of wine.
He turns into alcohol.
And Captain Haddock is going to unscrew
Yeah,
his head.
It's actually quite nightmarish, right? Because
Yeah, it's
Tintin's head
terrifying.
is the cork.
And it's like a
Oh,
really scary. It is a really scary image. It's like
Yeah.
his Haddock looks
So many-
crazy. Yeah. It's so good.
Great.
Yeah. And the
weird-
scariest part is he was only a port. That's the scariest part. Was only a.
By the way, I'd like to apologize. I don't mean to be like crapping on. I don't want to seem like I'm crapping on it every time I say in the book they did
No,
this.
no,
But it
no.
is one of those things where I feel like there were some missed opportunities, maybe some things that they just couldn't translate very well.
They were, as you've
And I
said,
love the book.
Griffin, they're going for adventure.
Yes.
This movie is kinetic. It never really stops.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like they just collide from one adventure to the next.
It's sort of a long chase. I mean, Tintin puts together pretty
Eventually,
quickly.
they get picked up by the French Foreign Legion, right?
Right. Oh yeah, because we forgot to mention the whole thing that the silver capsule underneath turned out to be the scroll that has the message on
Tintin
it.
has a scroll with
Right.
like a mysterious message on it.
Right.
And some
The
weird
three brothers.
markings. Yeah.
Right, and there were three
Eagle's
brothers
Cross.
to the Rackham family.
Yeah. No, to the Haddock family.
Right. Yes, sorry. Haddock is the only surviving member of the bloodline.
Right.
They need to unite the three scrolls to then get the secret measure.
So Saccharin's
message.
got one scroll.
Yes.
Tintin's got one scroll. The third scroll is in Morocco, where they go
Bulletproof glass.
behind bulletproof glass.
Yes.
But yeah, so there's this is the French Foreign Legion. That's the whole sequence where Haddock finally sobers up and recalls like the history of that happens in the desert too, where he's
In the
recalling.
desert, yes, he's drunk and the heat's getting to him, and he starts remembering. Halfway through
He's
the story,
got those
he cuts
cool
out.
images of like the boat
Yes.
coming over the sand dunes, and the sand dunes turns into water. He likes those. Like again, Spielberg's having fun. Those weird transitions.
Transitions are good. The
so
handshake
cool.
that
The
turns
handshake
into
that
that.
turns into like the car driving down the road,
And then
stuff.
there's the part where the puddle when Thompson are walking, right?
right.
Tintin and Haddock stranded in the middle of the sea turns into a puddle that Thompson walk over.
Yeah.
That stuff's fun. It's just Spielberg having fun with the
I think
cinematic
it's
language.
Great. I think it's great. I love the boat, the pirate shit,
Pirate shit's
where the
fucking
boats are like
awesome.
tangled
Yeah.
together,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
that's great action. I don't know.
It is, and it
I feel like I'm
seems.
trying to win Joe over.
No, I agree with that. I mean, that was actually a really compelling thing with the two masts were
Yes, they're
intertwined.
tangled.
You couldn't, and it's like it actually seemed viable. It was not. It was cartoony enough to seem exciting and viable enough to seem like you could believe it.
and
Right.
scary. I mean, like the flames and the boats
Yeah.
are both sideways. You see people falling
They're
off.
running up the mast and
Yeah.
like to get on board the other ship. It was kind of that was scary. The sea stuff
It's like
was
upsetting.
Actually,
It's
yeah.
got real weight to it. And then like Haddock, halfway through the story, peters out. I can't remember the rest of it.
Right, but then he completes it.
They get him to a hospital.
Yeah.
He's drinking water. He's like, what the fuck is this thing? They're like, water. Ha 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 ha.
Great bit.
Really good bit. Haddock gets 10 comedy points. So the nurse is like, oh, Mr. Haddock, 10 comedy points. And then they're like, oh, fuck, how do we get the rest of the story? We're so close to this. Snowy, it's like, let me sneak some alcohol in there. Snowy gives him some really high-grade medicinal alcohol.
Yeah.
And Haddock freaks out, thinks he's on the ship currently.
Yeah.
And there's a fun sequence. Fun.
Yeah.
When Haddock is like fighting everyone like
Yeah.
they're pirates, and
that's
they're
right
trying to like
that's right from the books.
right.
Yeah.
They can't stop him
Mhm.
because they
and
need to get the rest of the
Tintin
story.
is trying to coax the story out of him.
Right. Talk him through it. There's the nice moment where he's like, "I need more drink," and then he's like, "But then you remember."
Yes.
Tintin
yes.
narrates the story to him to remind him he doesn't need to.
He's right. Like he's raising the bottle of rum to
Right
his
out of the
lips,
back.
and then he decides that he's not
Yeah.
going to. Yeah.
Finishes
Now,
the story.
I will
Yeah.
say this
Yes.
about the drinking, like sort of like inducing his flashback or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I feel like it missed out on using Inagata Davida.
Yes, that is a very good point, Ben. That is a very good point. If I had one complaint with this movie, that is the one I would throw out.
Great.
Stevie, if you're listening, I don't know, maybe do a special edition with that one change.
I would love Stevie to be listening.
Yeah, me too. So now Tintin puts together the missing piece. Red Rackham was Saccharin's great ancestor. This is an old, bitter blood war, and the treasure,
Yeah, this is not in the books.
the golden unicorn, is at the bottom of the sea. That's what they're looking for. Unite the three scrolls, you'll get the coordinates. You can find this treasure. Tintin and Haddock will be rich, which is important because Tintin clearly
We'll need some money.
needs some money.
Yeah, well, there's the whole set piece at the Emirs, where the Bianca
Ben Salad.
Castafiore, yes, Ben Salad and Bianca Castafiore, they're dropping in these characters from the books
Classics.
who are maybe not as involved in these stories, but give them a little cameo.
In the books, he's an opium smoggler and not just
not a patron of the arts.
yeah.
Yeah, Tintin, a lot of opiates in those books.
lot
Hey
of
man, it
opium.
was the 30s.
Yeah. Bulletproof glass. She's a soprano. She hits the high note.
Yes, she sings her famous song from Faust.
Yes.
She breaks the glass and all the glass. That's a good scene. I like that.
But
I think
even
it's
before
funny.
that, Haddock, it's hurting his ears
Yeah,
for whatever reason because he's got like dog hearing.
I don't know.
So he runs out
Makes sense to me.
to get out of the room, and he runs into the other two guys. He figures it out, right?
Uh-huh.
The scroll, and then the two guys are coming after him.
Yeah. He gets out his bottle to take a swig.
Oh, right.
The scroll almost flies away. He puts down the bottle, grabs the.
That's the
grabs
moment which I
scroll.
really like.
I agree. I like that he has his little unseen moment of personal victory here.
Right. But
Yeah.
then immediately it's flipped back on him because the two guys come after him. They
Yeah,
hit him with the
Tintin
bottle.
thinks so. He went for the bottle and
Over
can
the
smell
scroll.
it on
I can
you.
smell it on
Yeah.
him. So now Haddock really wants to prove to Tintin.
Well, then we kick off the final. No, not the final. The penultimate and best set piece.
Yes.
That this is incredible. The
This is
car
like-
chase in the Jeep.
Right.
Haddock's got the bazooka, and he blows up the hotel behind him. So
Right.
the hotel like starts careening down the street with them.
And like the hotel is like on top of a tank, so it's
Hinton-
like a vehicle.
Right,
Yeah.
Tintin's on the motorcycle. They're not in a Jeep. What am I talking? It's in the motorcycle with the
Motorcycle
sidecar.
with a sidecar.
Right.
Right.
And
Haddock's in
they're-
a dress.
Yes, and like
Yeah.
there's the whole thing where the motorcycle comes apart and Tintin like goes down the clothesline with one of the
handlebars, yeah.
wheels and
But it's
and
like
it's an unbroken shot.
it's unbroken shot, and it's like 3 scrolls. That's all you gotta do is get 3 scrolls. So you're just keeping track of all these characters, and it'll move perspective throughout the sequence. Like sometimes you're following Sakharine, sometimes you're following Tintin, sometimes you're following Haddock, sometimes you're following Snowy, sometimes you're following that motherfucking eagle.
Yeah, which you
right, there's the
eagle is like
Saccarine's
carrying
got
2 of them.
an eagle. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about Glenn Frey. I'm talking about a real eagle.
Isn't it Fry?
Yeah, probably he's dead.
He was in Jerry Maguire.
Rest in peace.
He was in Jerry Maguire.
He was?
Rest in peace.
Yeah. He's like the manager of the Arizona Cardinals or whatever. It's an odd role. We didn't even mention it on the podcast, but he's in it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like 3 scenes.
So they're chasing.
He's
after
one who's like
scrolls.
in on the phone.
What weirder? I think the weirdest cameo I can think of cinematically though is when Michael Bay plays the leader of the frat boys in Mystery Men. It's a very strange.
We were just talking about Mystery
It's been
Men.
coming up a lot.
I
lately.
totally
So good.
forgot about that.
I rewatched it like a couple weeks ago.
I love it.
Michael Bay. How self-aware is Michael Bay?
That's a good question.
That's the question.
I
with Michael
hate-
Bay.
Maybe it's a question we'll answer soon.
Hmm.
Michael Bay, actually pretty good Mystery Man. He's only got the one line, but he delivers it well.
Michael
there
Bay
be
is
here?
pretty handsome and pretty charming. Like when
Yeah.
you see, because he does those ads sometimes where he's like, "I'm Michael Bay," and like, I don't want to do an insurance ad, like unless you blow it up or
Right,
whatever. And
right.
you know, it's like, oh, ha ha ha, Michael Bay. That's what he does, right?
Yeah.
But he's like, he's not stiff. He's decent. I forgot that he's a Mystery Man. Another reason for me to check back in.
Yeah.
With my favorite Kel Mitchell joint.
Better than Good Burger?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes. It
I
is
also
better
love-
than Good Burger.
I also love Good Burger.
Yeah, better than Clifford's Big Movie?
I have not seen Clifford's Big Movie.
Okay. Well, Kel Mitchell's the voice in that.
Kel Mitchell is
Kel Mitchell.
he's a bummer. That one. Kel Mitchell.
Well, let's not go down this corridor.
Jesus. Oof. It's Clifford's really big movie.
Okay. I mean, some props for.
He played T-Bone. Yeah. He's 9th build.
Oh.
Oh, boy.
Kel.
Oh, the mighty have fallen.
It's just so crazy that Keenan is like now like one of SNL's most like he's become like a
The most
pantheon
tenured-
SNL
yeah,
guy.
Right. Yeah.
And Kel is it's just
He's on a Nickelodeon show where he plays.
not that Keenan isn't funnier than
Yeah.
Kel. He is funnier than Kel. There's no disputing that.
Yeah, but Kel was kind of funnier when you were 10.
Kel was funnier when you're 10, but then when you're, in my opinion, even when you're 12, you're watching Keenan and Kel, you're like, this Keenan guy is amazing.
Well, it's like the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
When you're young, you're watching like Curly. When you're a teenager, you're watching Moe. When you get older, you watch Larry, and you're like, Larry is the
Larry's
one.
the fucking smart one.
He's the glue, man.
He's the glue.
Holds it all together.
He's the fucking glue. Thrilling chase. It's tough to even talk about because it's a visceral, purely visual sequence of joy. My friend Sim Regal, a future past guest, he always says to me, because he doesn't like Tintin, and I'm always fucking talking about Tintin when I'm drunk. He says, like, what's so impressive about that shot? Anyone can make something in one shot if it's CGI. And it's like,
no. I mean, you can, but it's like it doesn't look.
No.
It doesn't have the same look. You don't. I mean, the only thing. I mean, I'm glad you said that about the hotel blowing up the hotel.
Mhm.
I didn't know where the hotel came from.
Right.
I couldn't quite figure that out. That now it makes sense.
Right.
But the whole thing, like besides that, like is pretty
Seamless.
coherent.
I think
Yeah.
you're right about the you need to pay a little more attention to get why the hotel then slides
Sure.
down after them. Yes.
But the point isn't like,
No,
oh, that's
it's
amazing.
ridiculous to say,
how
like,
do they have a camera
You need
operator
to be
sitting for that?
strong
Right, right.
enough to do a good shot. I mean, it's not about like tenacity and stamina.
It's about how well
fucking-
designed that sequence
Yeah,
is, and,
right.
and that the
Jesus
sequence has so many.
Who are these idiots? Oh, this
Sam
is Sam
Regal.
Regal. Pfft, banned.
No
No
longer
more-
a future guest.
No more appearances until he
Past
reevaluates that position.
only.
Exactly.
It's just such a well-organized sequence that has so many good like story beats in it. Like there are exciting like reversals of who you think's about to grab the thing and where they're going, and it's so geographically laid out where it's like you see them traversing all the space and you understand where everyone is in relation to each other, even though they're covering a lot of land. It fucking rules. And then this movie does a thing I really like, which is that ends. They're reunited with Thompson & Thompson.
Sure.
They find the wallet, so they have that scroll now.
Yeah.
You know, all that shit.
Uh-huh.
And then they go like, wait a second. I know where they're going. We know how to get there.
Right.
Well, how do we get there? There's a plane. We could get there before them. And then the movie just cuts to everyone being there at the denouement.
Agreed with that. Here's what I don't like that the movie does.
What?
Follows its best set piece with easily its worst set piece.
Agreed.
And the denouement set piece sucks, unfortunately. And
Sure.
I do think that it was kind of like, it was either that they thought warring cranes was going to be a good idea, or they were just kind of out of ideas. I mean, and they were like, what happens at a shipyard? I don't know. Cranes?
And it's like it's a heightening of the sword fight.
It's not, it's no good.
It's no good.
It's confusing. It was
It
like
is confusing.
It's loud. It's a mess. I watched it. I wasn't paying enough attention the first time. The second time, I paid closer attention. I still didn't make a lot of sense.
This is, what I think the movie should have done. I forgot to say that the way the chase sequence ends is Tintin is holding onto the three scrolls, holding them up to the light. They're all aligned. He can see the message that the three combine to, which are the longitude and latitude of the sunken treasure. But the hawk is holding onto it. The eagle, whatever fucking bird it is.
Uh-huh.
And Saccharin's like, I'll throw fucking Haddock and Snowy.
I think we need to get to the denouement.
This is the end. This is the end.
Okay.
But the point is, Tintin has to choose his friends over
Of course,
that.
and he picks his
He lets him
friends,
go,
yes.
but then the movie just goes like, we don't need to see how he gets there. Let's just let him
gets
get there.
You track him back to London
I
or
feel like
Belgium
he
or
clearly,
wherever,
but he
wherever
clearly
the
stole that plane. Like
Yes,
the thing is,
yes,
like
he did. Yes, he
they
did.
don't talk about that. Like they don't say, "Oh, there's our answer right there." That plane that somebody clearly that is not us own.
Well, Tintin's a thief and a murderer. The
Right.
movie doesn't discuss that much. I would say if I had any constructive criticism for the movie, I would say once they cut to them landing at the docks and the final showdown with Saccharin, rather than being a fight, I would skip to the sort of emotional payoff.
Right. Which is how the book works.
Right.
The whole point of the book is it's like, hey, man, we actually had to just end up where we started, which is like the treasure was here all along. It was in
Right.
Marlin Spike in the old Haddock house,
But it's also
and it's in the basement.
they get
Like,
into
that's
this-
where it always has been.
they get into this fucking construction crane fight, and then once the fight's over, then they're both just standing level on a boat
Yeah.
talking
Right.
before they like settle it, and Haddock like uses the bottle to hit
Yeah.
Saccharin, so it's like for once he's prioritizing.
Fine. That's fine.
I would just skip straight to that.
Yeah.
And then Saccharin goes, but still I have the scrolls. Tintin grabs it from him. Everything's great. Haddock goes, my ship, boom, done, fun. And then, they got the coordinates. They go, they follow them. What's this? It's the house. It's the mansion, Saccharin's mansion, which he snuck into earlier in the movie because he was looking for his stolen
But
pirate
it's really
ship.
a Haddock house.
And that butler,
Nestor.
he was really
He was
on
kind of
Team Haddock the whole time.
okay. Sure. Yes.
Ooh, Nestor. Something they set up 45 seconds earlier when he says, well,
You don't really pay me at
anything.
all. Yeah. All right. Anyway.
They go down. They,
I already explained it.
They
First
get
of
the
all,
treasure.
they get the
I like
treasure.
the
They get
idea
the
that Haddock, knows what button to push on the globe because he's a good naval man who gets that that's not an island, that must be a button.
Yeah, and
I like that.
I also like that now they have like a fucking Batman setup where it's like, here's their butler, here's
Yeah.
their mansion.
Right, that's
they
how-
can now afford anything.
Right, that's how Tintin then works from then on.
Right.
Tintin lives in Marlin Spike with
Yeah.
Haddock and Calculus when Calculus shows up. And yeah, it's like,
They have a lot of pillow fights.
yeah,
Yes.
right. What do? I don't know. They have money. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's fine. That's no. Oh, sorry. I
Let's
kept you.
continue living in our asexual universe and chasing adventure.
Right. No one in Tintin is ever sexual except Calculus has a crush on Castafiore. That's the only romance that ever plays out in Tintin.
Calculus's Wikipedia page makes a point of noting
Right.
that he's the only sexual character in the entire
that's
Tintin universe.
pretty funny. That's,
Of either gender.
I guess with Castafiore, she always has like suitors, but they're not really like romantic interests.
No.
They make, but in the movie, she insinuates that she and Saccharin are boning.
Yeah, there's also that scene where she fucks Snowy, which is weird.
No, but she does say like
Yes.
he's a very passionate
Yeah, that's right.
patron of the arts.
No,
and
thank
it's just
you.
like you're just like,
There's
whoa.
some eyebrow wiggling.
How do they have the time for that? Like what? I mean, I don't know. It doesn't matter. They had the time. They had some off-screen sex.
They
Good
did
for
it.
them.
Yeah, Craig and
Maybe-
whoever plays
Maybe he's
her,
only a minute
Kim
man.
Stengel.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might be a 1 minute man.
Yeah, 1 minute man. So that's The Adventures of Tintin, the greatest film ever made.
Yeah, it's a good movie. They're set.
It's an
You can
ambitious
see
movie,
Griffin
for
right
sure.
now. He's got the mic in his lap, and he's just crouched over like a dumb baby.
Number 1 on my sight and sound list.
I think Tintin's great.
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying.
You're
at a
trying to
certain-
win me over.
Right. At a certain point, if you watch a movie enough times,
Yeah.
it's almost like, do I even think this is a great movie, capital G, capital M, or is it just one of my favorite movies?
Yeah.
And I don't know where you fall in this regard. Like, if you made a top 10 of 2011, would Tintin be number 1, or would it be?
No, it wouldn't. No, honestly, if we're being honest here, it was in my 10. It wasn't number 1. I think 2011 Master was my number 1.
I'm just looking at some of the movies. You've got The Master, of
I
course.
think The Master
as
was
you
my number
said.
1. I think Moneyball was number 2.
No, The Master's 2012.
Oh,
my
really?
friend. Yes.
So in
right.
2011, I don't know what my number 1 was. It wasn't Tintin. I'll be honest with you.
You
It
got
wasn't Tintin.
Margaret. So that was my number 1.
Margaret was my number. That's my number
You got
1 of the decade.
Tree
Right.
of Life is a movie from that year.
Below
Moneyball.
Tintin for me. Moneyball was above.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
So Margaret would have been my number 1.
Hugo.
Moneyball would have been my number 2. I don't like Hugo.
Drive. Melancholia.
Those films probably would have been in my 10 below Tintin.
Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene.
Is a film I like a lot.
Good movie.
Was probably number 4 or 5.
Shame.
Tintin was maybe my 3 or 4.
Sure. That's good.
Good movie.
So you like it a
Pretty
lot.
high.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear about the box office game?
Yeah.
Good. I guess we won't do it for Warhorse.
Oh, yeah, this is going to have to cover it for both.
Yeah,
Oh,
this will be
wow.
it. Because Warhorse opens at number 7
Okay.
with $14.5 million. And eventually
Good,
we will discuss.
good horse movie.
Good on a horse
good,
movie.
Good money for a horse.
It eventually grosses $79 million.
Tintin ends
Tintin
up making
opens number
76.
5,
Yeah.
$15 million, makes $77 million.
Okay.
So yeah, it's almost like they released 2 movies and they made half the money one movie
Yeah.
could make.
It feels like one of them would have made 150.
So Tintin is number 5 at the box office,
Okay.
and this is Christmas 2011. Number 1 jumps after some limited release. It expands, and it jumps to number 1 in
Okay.
its second week of release.
So this has to be your favorite of the franchise.
Correct.
Mission Impossible Ghost Prot,
Ghost Protocol.
which had a limited release only in IMAX theaters.
Correct.
Opened well, but
Yes.
then finally went wide and opened bigly.
It opened bigly. It's made $76 million at this point.
En route to 220.
On the route to 209 million,
Oh, lower than
700 worldwide.
Yeah.
My number 2 or 3 of that year, for sure. One of my favorite movies
Lower than Tintin for me.
ever made. No. Number 2 is a sequel to another Christmas movie. The end of a franchise that has not been continued.
Little Fockers.
No.
Really? I was so confident on that
You were
swing.
very confident.
That was 2010. Okay.
I think you might be right, yes.
2011 Christmas franchise has not been continued.
No, it's the second in a 2-film series.
And did people feel like it was maybe going to keep going?
I don't think so. The passion wasn't there. The movie makes 186 domestic, 545 worldwide. There's no reason not to make another one.
Live action or animated?
Live action.
Is it a family movie?
Not really. It's like
Not
an
really.
action movie,
Oh,
kind of.
oh. I was thinking too literally when you said Christmas movie. You mean it was
Yeah,
just
it's
a
not-
Christmas franchise?
Yeah.
Yes, it's Sherlock Holmes' Game of Shadows.
Correct.
Okay.
Number 3 is a movie. you
Yeah,
talk
weird
about
that they
all the
haven't
time.
made a third one of that.
I think Downey Jr. is just busy and
Yeah.
doesn't want to do it. With the third one is a movie you talk about way too much on this podcast. I don't think you've seen it.
I haven't.
No.
It is called
He knows what it is. Yeah.
Alvan
Yeah.
et le Chipmunk
Uh-huh.
Shipwreck.
Great. Yep. It's made $56 million in 2 weeks. It will make 133 domestic.
And you were right. I have not seen it.
Is that the one that's not Walt Becker?
Yeah, that's the one directed by Mike Mitchell, who did Sky High.
Correct.
He made one great movie and then now makes Trolls.
Did you see any of the Alvin movies or no?
I've seen 1 and 4.
There's
Wait, you haven't seen 2? The Squeakquel?
No, I haven't seen the Squeakquel.
Okay.
So the first one, it fucking sucks. That one's by Tim Hill. Did not see the second one, which was directed by Betty Thomas.
Okay.
Skipped the third one, which was directed by Mike Mitchell.
And that's the one where it was like David Cross is in it, but he's in a full suit a full costume the whole time. But they still made him like be in the movie and like be on like a fucking boat for 3 months or whatever,
Yes,
right?
that is
Yeah.
Shipwrecked, in which he's in a costume, and then once they finally get shipwrecked and the movie becomes, I shit you not, a Lord of the Flies remake.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Then the
Hello.
costume comes off, and it's revealed that that guy who's been in a costume for the first 2/3 of the movie
Is
was
David
David
Cross.
Right.
Right.
James Slade
And
is
he
in
was
it as
like,
well.
I can't just show up at the island part. Like, you can't just have a guy. Anyway. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
but you know what neutralized that argument?
What?
When he went on all the talk shows and complained about that producer who wouldn't let him out by calling her a dirty Jew.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I forgot about
he's
that.
a dirty Jew himself, David Cross.
Yeah, he is. Still, not a great bit.
True. David Cross has done some bad bits in
Yeah,
recent
bad
time.
bit.
Yeah, it was a very weird. I remember that was the. Don't even remember that part of it, but I remember he was very vocal about not liking that movie and not liking having been in that movie.
Every
It's a
single
weird-
press appearance he did for that movie, he complained about the movie and the producer, and he named her.
His number 4 at the box
He's got a lot of
office.
work since then, hasn't he?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Crossy,
ton.
Crossy
Yeah.
Pants. Number 4 at the box office
Uh-huh.
is a film that people thought was going to do huge
Ooh,
huge
interesting.
money. It opens to 27 mil on Christmas.
Okay.
That they released this movie on Christmas is absolutely fucking bonkers.
The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?
Correct. David Fincher film, an incredibly excellent movie in my opinion.
I think a solid movie for me, but I haven't seen it since its release.
It stands up. Another Daniel Craig joint.
Yeah. It's a big year for him.
Looks good. Yeah. Kind of forgotten though, I would say.
Yeah.
Made 100 mil, but
Yeah.
forgotten.
So that's the box office game.
We bought a zoo.
Oh.
Oh.
Fond memories. New Year's Eve.
Oh.
The Darkest Hour.
Oh.
What was that again?
I think that was
Some disaster.
kids in
movie.
Russia and aliens attack or something.
Cool. The Descendants
Yeah.
with Clunes.
Yeah. Oh, a movie people still talk about a lot.
It won an Oscar for best writing.
Yes, and we all quote the lines from that screenplay that we love.
Remember when his wife dies?
They teach it in film schools.
This is largely the most forgettable box office so
It's a
far.
fairly-
It's a
There's like
weird-
one or two
yeah.
memorable
You know-
ones, and it's like mostly disposable.
It's a weird time where, it's before studios are just like, you know what? We just fucking make superhero movies.
We're
That's
not
it.
making any money. We don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah.
What was the Muppets that
The
year?
Muppets is number 11.
Okay.
Hugo is number 12. You don't like Hugo, by the way? That's pretty rude. You should watch Hugo again. Young Adult.
Underrated.
Which is an underrated little picture.
Certainly the best Reitman movie.
I like Juno much better.
Certainly the best Reitman
Arthur
movie.
Christmas.
Oh, Arthur Christmas.
The Sitter. That's a weird one.
That's a weird one.
Dawn 2. What the hell is that? It must be
Yeah, I think that's a Bollywood
a Bollywood movie. It is, yes.
In summation, I think Tintin's fun. He's a cool guy. I like his sweaters. I'm probably going to be Tintin for Halloween next year.
Sure, be Tintin.
Uh,
I
what-
love Tintin, and
watch it-
I think this is good.
But I'll say this, like watching this movie, last week we talked about Crystal Skull, both last week in terms of release and last week in terms of when we recorded.
Yep.
And, I thought I was going to be the one defending the movie. And it ended up that you and Richard, especially David Ehrlich, both defend that movie even more than I do.
Which movie?
Kingdom of the
Crystal
Crystal
Skull.
Skull.
Yes, of course. Yeah, right.
A movie that I think is interesting.
Right. I
Doesn't
think,
totally
I think it's
work.
pretty interesting. Yeah, I think it's good.
And
like
I
Crystal
think
Skull.
you look at the Spielberg DreamWorks years, and a lot of times he gets into trouble when he tries to make a quote-unquote classic Spielberg picture.
Yep.
Because he's sort of evolved and grown in this stage of his career where he's into, rather than using these primary colors, good versus evil, black versus white kind of battles, these gray areas, these murky morality movies, human morality.
Human.
And I think Tintin's an outlier because the new toolbox he is given through this technology allows him to not just be replicating his old tricks, but try all new tricks. It is a tricks movie. It's a funhouse movie. It's a fucking roller coaster movie. But I think it's like some of the best action filmmaking of the last 10 years. And I like Tintin. I like these characters. I like the movie so simple, straightforward, sincere, and exciting.
Go to your local library and check out some of the books. Tintin. Crab with the Golden Claws.
That's a good one to start with if
that's a
you want to do that. Yeah.
I
the first Haddock
I like the
adventure.
Moon ones. There are some fun
Moon
fucking
ones are great.
Tintin space adventures.
Stay away from Belgian, or rather Tintin in the Congo.
Yep.
Not the good one to go to.
Yeah, that one I believe is harder to find for very good reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Written in
Once
the 30s.
once you get to Cigars of the Pharaoh, which to me is the first like proper Tintin adventure, that's basically anything is good, and
I
it is
love
interesting to
Cigars
read
of the
them.
Pharaoh movie. That was
Me
probably my
too.
favorite one.
It's interesting to read Tintin chronologically, to watch Hergé's outlook develop, to watch
Yeah.
Tintin change. I think the last few Tintin books are just absolutely incredible. Like,
I think he researched as time went on. Like
yeah,
the first ones, he
would-
didn't research, and then as time went on, he researched very diligently.
He'd be
Every
more
culture's-
thorough, and he'd mess with his own formula, very formally adventurous, like the Castafiore Emerald, which is the one where like nothing happens. It's all set at Marlinspike, and there's no plot or villain. And like Tintin Tibet, obviously, which is sort of his opus, which is a very humane and very like sad work.
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
brilliant.
look, I like the Tintin oeuvre more than I like this Tintin movie. I think the books are still the best Tintin thing.
They're incredible.
Far and away, right? By several miles. Is this the perfect Tintin adaptation? No. I think it's a really good like mashup between Spielberg's style and Tintin and what that property is. I think it gave him an opportunity to flex those Indiana Jones muscles that perhaps had been a little quelled by George Lucas's creative interference.
Sure.
And the new opportunities of the technology. But definitely read the fucking books. And also, hey, Steve, make a new Tintin movie.
Or Peter Jackson. Are you cool with Peter Jackson making one?
Yeah, totally fine with that. I think he's another filmmaker who would probably be... He would be better if he worked in pure CGI right now.
What I really liked about this one...
maybe.
Did you guys watch the bonus features at all?
No, I'd like to.
What I liked about it is that you're watching it, and Spielberg, who I'd figure would be jaded at this point in his career, comes off as just completely... He loves Tintin. He loves what he's doing. He's so enthusiastic about this. And meanwhile, Peter Jackson seems almost kind of blasé. Like, he's the guy that, like, you're used to seeing, like, freak out about things.
True.
And he's just like...
I think something happened to Peter Jackson, man. I think something wrecked him.
King Kong, I think, because he had so much hung on that.
Right, he really wanted to make that.
Well, I heard was Beauty Killed the Beast, but I don't know if that certainly was what killed him.
I mean, we have to stop talking.
I think King Kong killed his spirits. Or you know what? Hey, fucking Joe Cornish, Edgar Wright, both great filmmakers would make a great Tintin movie.
Edgar Wright making one of these would be a goddamn delight.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Or Joe Cornish. Have Joe Cornish make a fucking movie.
Yeah.
Attack the Block's great. Talk about 2011.
Oh, geez, yeah.
That's an Attack the Block.
Yes.
2011. Oh, my God. I'm going crazy.
So note to Hollywood,
my brain's
let Joe
misfiring.
Cornish make a movie.
Yeah,
Note
let Joe
two,
Garden make a movie if he wants.
Let Joe Garden make a movie.
You're okay?
I'll tweet. Yeah, I'm fine. I'll tweet at him if I want him. If I really want to make a movie, I'll just tweet incessantly at them until
Change
they
your Twitter username to future Tintin director.
How was it to be on Blank Check, Joe?
It was great. From a fan, well, I have can I ask, just like before we wrap up, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah,
I just want to ask a couple questions just from the fans' perspective.
Sure.
David, you've made reference to your time in Great Britain.
Yeah.
But
Grew up in Britain.
So you are an American,
brag.
but are you a British citizen or an American citizen?
Both, baby.
Really?
Yes.
Is your mother British, father
British, mother American.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you...
got both passports.
So-
Just renewed them, too.
So how the hell do you not have an accent?
Had an accent. These are questions that are often asked to me when
Okay,
people meet
good.
me. Had an accent, a little bit of an accent when I lived in Britain. Had sort of I always say that I sounded like Madonna. I sort of sounded like an American, kind of maybe putting on a bit of a British
Mark
accent.
Ronson. Yes.
Yeah. But the old joke was everyone in Britain thought I was American. Everyone in America thought I was British. But when I moved back here, I'd lived in America the first 9 years of my life. Within a couple months, it was gone. Like I just sort of reverted. If I go there, it comes back. It's my environment. I react to it.
Good to know.
And it's not just my accent, but if I go to Britain, like all these idioms, these sort of ways of speaking, like just the whole rhythm of the language is different there, and in ways that I'm not picking up on. But like if my girlfriend comes to me, she's like, you're talking different. Like, it's weird.
I say if I go to, I didn't live in Springfield, Illinois, but it's like, and it's Springfield, Illinois is not the South, but I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah.
I find that when I go back there or to the South, I start saying y'all without even being aware of it.
It's these things. It's exactly that kind of stuff. In England, you drop articles. You say I'm going to hospital or whatever. It's like there's all kinds of shit like that. I mean, obviously, the obvious things, but like there's all these less obvious things that are also just baked into the language. It's very funny. Funny how we all talk.
So you'd be a cinema critic in Great Britain.
No, I guess I don't know what they call them.
They call them Tintins in England.
Yeah, they call them.
And then a question for the Haas, really fast.
Oh, wow.
Hey, what's up?
Have you seen the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones?
Live?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I've seen a bunch of ska.
That's a good question.
So that's a great question.
I just, I don't know why. It just seemed like for some reason, what is the best ska band you saw?
Catch-22.
Oh. Is that third wave or is that like post third wave?
I think that's third wave.
Okay.
Because
So-
they were pretty popular like late 90s into early aughts.
Merchandise spotlight here. Joe Garden has graciously made a series of Ben Hosley pins. Do you know how many there are in total?
I think there were 19, and I missed some nicknames. I doubled up on one.
I will post a picture, but he has made a pin. All have the same image of Ben Hosley's smiling face wearing a Yankees cap. But each one has a different... Do you have a bag yourself, Ben?
Yeah, I'm looking at them now.
Oh, man.
all got
I'm hearing
'em.
the jostling. Each one has a different nickname on them. They're all in green, except, of course, for the one in red, which has the Ghostbusters No Ghost logo over Ben Hosley's face and says Professor Crisp.
These are quite incredible, and it was one of those things where Joe handed them to me, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, thinking that they were all just pins with Ben's face on them.
Nope.
Didn't get the customization, the second layer of customization that had happened.
I mean, you have the Haas, you have Mr. Positive, and you have Mr. Positive. These are thorough.
I did
They
not want to... No stone unturned. I did
Right.
miss our finest film critic, though.
Oh, wow.
I apologize
Yeah.
for that. So
Maybe you should just go back and do them again.
I'll just go back and do
that's
them again.
less of a nickname and more of, I guess, an official job title. So that's fine. But yes, I mean, we're recording this episode in January. So by the time this episode comes out in May, I assume these will be available to purchase at all Spencer's Gifts.
Mass production. I'm going to
Yes.
go. My girlfriend and I are going to be mass producing these, just
Please.
churning them out left, right. Oh, by the way, she, my girlfriend Hannah, she sends a special message. She wants me to stop bullying you guys on Twitter.
Aww.
So
I'm cool with you bullying us. Still
Yeah.
better than John Braylock, who's the chief bully of me on the internet.
You've earned the right, Joe. You were a great guest. Thank you so much for being here.
oh, thanks.
Nice to talk with a fellow tin head. And thanks for the buttons. They're amazing.
Oh, they're so great, Joe. Thank you so much.
Oh, I was happy to make them. It made me very happy as soon as I saw the layout.
Yeah, man.
Uh,
There's something about Ben's face.
It's the best. It's one of the all-time great faces.
I want like a Andy Warhol like prints of his face. God, it's something about the just with the mouth open, the kind of like yeah.
So go to your local Journeys, your local Spencer's Gifts, your Hot Topic. Ben buttons are available in a 20-pack
Yeah.
at all fine retailers. Joe, just make sure you produce enough.
I will make sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, churning them out.
Thank you for being here. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, all that good business. Blankies, Reddit, subreddit, and as always, Denzel Washington would make a good Professor Calculus.
Yeah,
he'd be good. He'd be good. He'd be good.
He's so good.
He's a good actor. Do you feel like you have a good Haddock impression?
Not really. I don't want to set you up. Please don't make me. What do you
It's
want to
more
do?
about I'm gonna say the line, but then there's a Haddock response,
Uh-huh.
which is good. But maybe I'll try to do both.
What is the line? I
I mean-
can't because this is not a. I mean, this is not a
Red
movie.
Rackham.
Red Rackham.
It's unquenchable, Tintin.
That's the last line of the movie.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying it would feel weird if I say the second to last line and the last line is.
You do both of them. I'm not limbered up here.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Everyone's ready?
We're ready.
There's a clue to another treasure. How's your thirst for adventure? Fuck. I fucked it up.
Were you gonna do Thirst for Podcast?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Okay, let's try it again.
You're too into Tintin.
I'm too into Tintin. I've been wanting to play Tintin my entire life. Okay, ready?
Yeah, you would have been.
Would have been. Could be.
Okay.
In Tutu? Tintin Tutu?
You're happy with that.
Tintu? Tutin?
All right, go ahead.
This has been a UCB comedy production. Check out our other shows on the UCB Comedy Podcast Network.